Hello, everybody. Welcome to Frame Trap. On this episode, I am joined by Michael Damiani.
Yo!
And is that a fresh haircut, Michael Huber?
Fresh cut.
Looking good.
Fresh cut.
Looking
Good
good.
stuff.
Yeah, fresh cut before you go on your trip.
Yes, leaving.
For some reason, I thought you were going to
tomorrow
Norway, but you're going to Iceland.
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 2 weeks. So excited.
Yeah. I am your host, Ben Moore, and in honor of your vacation, which I think is really cool, one of my favorite things is traveling. As like most humans, right?
Yeah.
What's like your either your favorite trip that you've been on, the coolest place that you've seen, and or a place that you most want to go?
My favorite trip was China, actually.
Nice.
Went with my wife and her family. Her dad worked out there. So when he was retiring, he had us all come over and we did like Shanghai, Beijing, just this like 2.5 week trip through a lot of China. And it's just not what I expected, you know? And it was like Beijing was what I thought China was going to be. But everywhere else was just like defied all my expectations.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because like if you aren't familiar with like the United States, right? If you go to say Los Angeles or New York or something, that's not necessarily what most of the United States.
Or like people come to Hollywood Boulevard when they visit LA and they're just like,
man,
yeah.
If you ever come to LA, Hollywood is awful. It's not worth going to, not even for there's nothing. It's just awful. But yeah, those are good places. Damiani, how about you? Or one place, rather.
Probably the best trip I went on was the Tokyo Game Show trip back in 2009 to Japan.
Yeah.
Just getting to go there, see all the sights, and just seeing something that was, having lived in Los Angeles and seeing New York City as well, like the two biggest cities in the U.S., and then just seeing like Tokyo blow them away in terms of scale. It's just like, all right, this is like a whole other level. It was very eye-opening and very cool experience. But places I'd love to go, there's a lot. Would love to go visit South Korea.
Yeah.
To go to Seoul. Even like locally, I just want to. Oh, sorry, you're gonna.
No, Seoul is also a place I very
It just
much
looks really cool to
yeah.
check out. Just even like closer, Canada. I've never been to Canada.
I haven't.
Would
either.
love to go to like
Never been to
Toronto
Canada.
or Vancouver or any of the more interesting parts that people would say go to. Just like us, like don't go there. That's like the Hollywood Boulevard of Canada.
Right. I've always, I don't know why, but I've always had this want to go to Greece. Really want to go to Greece and just see a lot of the like the waterways and just all of the history that's there and all of that stuff is really, really cool. But
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, I went to, I think there are a lot of trips. I mean, obviously Japan was like, felt like going home. But also a place that I think I didn't have the same expectations for, going to New Zealand, like,
wow. Yeah.
It was amazing. And I think also because like I was just, it was a honeymoon, so you're with somebody, that you deeply care about and just seeing the sights together and it just being so relaxing. And I don't know, like, of course, when you go on your honeymoon, you're going to have a different interpretation of a place than if you like live there. So I can't say like this place is this way definitively, but goddamn, New Zealanders seem pretty chill from my perspective. Like everything just seemed better. I don't know. Maybe it was just the time that I went. But Huber, you're making me very jealous. You're making me want to travel again. I can be hard to carve out the time, so I'm glad you're doing that.
Yeah, it was like her family was just like, "Yo, we're going. Do you want to go?" Like, it's expensive, but in the whole pandemic, it's stressful. Got an offer we couldn't refuse just with the travel fare. And
I'm gonna choose to believe that you had like some mafia connections that got you this trip to do that.
Yeah, because you just like you said, it's hard to carve out the time. And what's the point of living? You gotta live. Like I feel like travel is one of those things that you just gotta do.
Yeah,
gotta make the time.
It's something that I'm bad at. And I'm still bad at it, but the older I get, right, because I'm 32 now, and I realize, like, looking back on my 20s, I was like, I pretty much just, like, never stopped. Like it was
Yeah,
just
it
like
never stopped.
Yeah, and I the older I get, the more I realize like sometimes you just have to emergency brake it. Like you know, obviously you don't have the luxury of doing that all the time, but every once in a while, just for like you said, just appreciating life, you need to carve out that time. It's very, very important
For sure.
But we mentioned Japan, and I don't think there's any game more appropriate to start with than the very Japanese Tales of Arise, which I've been able to put some time into, but then the Deathloop review kind of unexpectedly fell in my lap, and so that consumed
Yeah, dude, you've
all
been
of my
crushing the
time.
reviews, Ben. Shout out.
Been reviewing a lot of stuff.
Goodness.
I told Blood this morning or early afternoon, I was like, it's just been really nice reviewing games that like aren't 50+ hours. Like I really enjoyed that. Yeah, that's been really good. But Tales of Arise seems to be pretty hefty. Maybe not quite 50 hours. But Damiani, you're a huge Tales fan, and you got to play all the way through it. I'm a couple of hours into it, and just as somebody who's played so many of the games, it definitely feels like there's something a little bit different about Tales of Arise. It seems to be just review-wise getting more recognition than usual. And from your perspective, why do you think that is?
Maybe the simplest way to put it is, if you don't want to go check out a review that anyone has put out there, is that it's finally a Tales game with a budget.
Yeah. It feels that way.
Bandai Namco actually cares about Tales a lot this time, and it shows. And I don't think as much as I thought initially has been radically changed. It's not like a revolutionary new title. I don't think it's actually radically altering anything. It's just like slightly adjusting a few things here and there.
Yeah.
But like just the production values are coming through, and it looks like something that should be taken a little bit more seriously. I think that's why it's catching more people's eyes, and that's why a lot of more people are trying it out. And I think especially that new engine is really helping it out, because man, those games were starting to look really dated despite their efforts. It was like going on like what, since Tales of Vesperia's engine. I think they've been using it for the same time for like 12 years now.
Yeah, I definitely distinctly remember playing Zestiria and Berseria and being like, this feels behind. I'm not exactly sure how far behind, but just graphically, particularly environments and the areas that you're exploring, I think a bit get behind. And like there are some pretty, I mean, just stylistically, I think this game is very, very strong, and that really amounts to a lot. I mean, when you're doing these battles against these giant anime monsters, it kind of having the spectacle and the budget and just, you know, the performance, it really does matter a lot, I think.
Yeah, it does. And I think presentation speaks a lot to the moment-to-moment gameplay, just running around zones, looking that nice, even if they maybe aren't as... They're more densely filled with flora and fauna, but maybe not so much activity other than like fighting and a few occasional side diversions. Right. But man, just like the first area, I think, was nice to have like such a stark contrast, like green hills or a forest where you usually start in a game. It's like this like desert fire hell area that like you're like, okay, this is interesting. We're starting here, but then you get to like the ice snow area in the second place, and like seeing that first like mountainside or that like that lakeside, and just like walking through it was just, man, it felt like it was actually crafted with like thought behind it. It didn't feel like copy paste design. It didn't feel sparse and empty because there was so much vegetation in there, all like the blizzard effects going on. It just looked nice, and I appreciate that, and I think that's coming across to a lot of people. It's just, this looks nice. I want to walk around in this world. I want to keep going because each new place just kind of wows you.
Yeah, I think you're touching on a lot of really good things there. And I think so far, for me, the most striking thing about Tales of Arise, and it's interesting kind of comparing it to two of the most recent games that I reviewed, No More Heroes 3 and Psychonauts 2, where it was like, I was fortunate enough that it's like, okay, I'm caught up on these series, and if you really want to enjoy both of these, I strongly recommend that you play the other entries in the series. And I think when you're excited about something, there's a part of you that is like, man, like a lot of people probably haven't played those previous games. And what's so nice about Tales, a la, you know, like a Final Fantasy or a Dragon Quest, is it is a brand new world with a brand new cast of characters. You don't have that barrier of entry. And I have been really shocked at how kind of immediately enveloped into the world that I am, where it has a very rich history, a really interesting dynamic between two very different groups of people, and really its own kind of eternal logic for how things function that I think it explains pretty clearly without getting like too bogged down in exposition. Like it seems like characters are pretty much at the forefront. You know, having played a lot more of the game than I have, would you agree with that?
Yeah, they go for. It's kind of interesting because they take a very down to earth approach. I think for a good chunk of the game.
Yeah,
and with most of the Tales games, the focus is on characters. But one thing this game does, I think, a little bit differently is that as you add more party members to your roster, they don't all necessarily get along at first. They kind of bicker with each other. In fact, some of the overarching themes about like these two different races, like one's in charge and enslaving the other races, you have a member who is a part of that other race. And so you're dealing with those dynamics. And as you add more party members, they're like, wait, why do you have a so-and-so in your team and stuff? Like, how can you trust them? Like, there's you got to go through that every time. I mean, not as not as dragged out. I think it's just they deal with those kind of like political dynamics about one group's in power, one isn't, and not everyone gets along at first when you're with each other. Like even the lead Shion and Alphen. The two main characters, they don't even sort of get along too much at the beginning. They kind of are like at each other's throats a little bit. I mean, you could read into it maybe like there's some underlying romance or something there. It's up to you to determine that. But otherwise, like these people just like, I feel like the conversations, it might not be the best written dialogue, but I feel like this is how people would sort of act around each other. Like we don't just get along right away. Like I distrust you and like you're annoying me with this. And it's like, I kind of like this. Like, and when they finally start to gel and come together, it's like this feels earned to me. This doesn't feel like the game just told me it's going to happen and it happened. I appreciate this a little bit more.
And speaking to that point, when you mentioned Shion, in addition to like kind of having that friction because of the race class and the class clash that you have with those different groups. They don't reveal everything. She doesn't reveal everything about herself. Where she's like, "Why would I tell you this? I don't know you. Like, I need you to help me accomplish this goal, but I'm not going to tell you what that goal is." And that's very natural. It's a lot better than like meeting a character and being like, "Okay, here's my entire life story. Here are all my goals planned out." And so, yeah, I agree. I think it feels a little bit more natural for sure. And I love how kind of immediately they get into this very believable conflict between these groups of people, and like immediately the characters are kind of wrestling with history and with what's presented right in front of them, where it's like, you helped me out and I liked that, but you're still a part of this group that has enslaved my people, and so I'm torn. And I think that wrestling with those emotions and not really sure how to feel about something also makes it feel more believable.
Yeah, and it's a good catch there, because I think the game does a good job of that throughout the entirety of the story. That there are no simple solutions. Even when they think they come up with something, they realize they're going to be this is still an imperfect solution. There's still going to be shit we're going to have to deal with, and we're going to have to deal with those ramifications. And basically, yeah, they don't let things off the hook, basically, for the most part. It tries to be nuanced, and it has varying degrees of success. I don't think it's like a perfect narrative by any measure.
Yeah.
And it has its problems, but within the scope of Tales games, I think, again, nuance is the important difference here, because while there have been past games that have tried to deal with similar themes and have been dark, quote unquote, dark stories, it's the nuance here. I think they finally are trying to make it not so like black and white, where it's like, this is bad, this is evil. It's like, think about your actions, because even when you do something, it affects other groups of people in other ways, and like you might not realize that yet. And just I love one character later on. I won't say who it is, but they're basically like, they tell another character who joins your party, there's nothing you need to do to atone for the past. Like, you did this evil shit. You can't make that right. Like, you've been preaching about how you're going to do this right, but like, I'm just going to tell you, stop that. Like, you all you can do is live in the now and try and do things differently and help other people from encountering like that same fate that you were a part of. Like, but you can't make up for those lives that were lost. So you can't do that. I was like, you know what? That's an angle that's not usually presented, because in like these shonen types of like tropes, it's like, no, you will atone, you will become the hero, you will like make things better, and like everyone will be happy with you. It's like not everyone's even gonna be happy with you by the end of this game. So it's like, yeah, I kind of like that.
No fate but what we make.
The other thing that I really like is, I kind of mentioned how, you know, benefit of Tales is there's a low barrier of entry regardless on your experience with the series, but at the same time there's kind of this confidence with this game that I really like. Like there's a really great flow to it, and I guess kind of what I mean by that is when you go out into the world, they're like, okay, you're going to need to cook stuff. There's going to be markers on the map. If you want to go get that stuff, it's right there. If you need to fast travel to a point, you can open up a map. You can see different layers of different regions. You want to go there, you can do it. And it just, there's this flow to it where you're just like, yeah, none of this is really a pain in the ass. Like I could kind of get to where I want to be. I feel like things are clearly labeled. It's just like, it knows what it is, and it's allowing me to do those things efficiently, I feel like.
Yeah. I can't remember if any of the past ones had fast travel like this, but I feel like some didn't, until like usually you have to get like an airship or something, and then you can like manually like select something on like a map, and it'll teleport you back there. But
I want to say the later ones do, but I know
that
could be very
reviewed
wrong.
Visceria, and I'm like, did it have? But like from the very get go, it's like the first time you get to a campfire, it's like you can now fast travel to any other campfires. Any time it marks a point of interest, like you can now fast travel. I was like, this makes things so much easier. I mean, it's something that's been around forever. It's just nice that Tales finally like incorporated that. And as you said, like things are clearly marked on the map. I feel like at any point I knew where I needed to go. I knew what my objectives were, and like the information presented to me was like very succinct. And I think that it helps avoid the pitfall of like maybe you're aimlessly wandering in a big open zone. Like, what am I doing? Like that never felt like I was at that point ever in this game whatsoever. Yeah.
Definitely. I'm sure you have more than I do, but kind of the two criticisms that I've encountered so far, one is pretty small and one is significantly larger, I would say. So the skits, on one hand, I think the skits are done way better than they usually are.
That's
where
when they like pop up.
The heads,
yeah.
Here, they're more dynamically presented. They're more visually interesting, and I like them. You know, they're a very core part of Tales, and it's nice, I think, to have those scenes where either characters are joking around or you just get to know them a little bit more, or they talk about one very specific aspect of the world or of their history or whatever it is. The problem that I have is the way that they pop up sometimes. Like, I'll do something, and then it's like, okay, you've got like 2 or 3 skits to watch back to back to back. Or it's just like, hit the button to have this conversation, and there's just... I guess what I'm trying to say ultimately is there's just this kind of like awkwardness to how it appears that really isn't that big of a deal. I'm still going to watch them, but there are just moments where I'm like, I just wish this was like a little bit more natural than what it is.
Yeah. So I didn't really mention in my review, because I didn't feel like it was like that much of an issue. Also, past Tales games have kind of had the same problem, so it's something that it's still there. So it is fair to call it out. My thing with it was sort of like what you were saying, except my thing was a little bit more specific in that there'd be a few times where it felt natural, where it'd come up and it'd give you new information, either about character development or about what was going on in like your immediate surroundings or the story at that point. Majority of the time, though, it would be another layer on top of something you just saw. So there'd be a cutscene. Cool, got a bunch of info dump right here. Come out of it. There's a skit. Yeah. It's literally just talking more about what I just saw. Like, why wasn't that in the cutscene?
Exactly.
Like, and then like there might be like there's a little bit too much oversaturation.
Yes.
I feel like they could have trimmed a good percentage of the skits, and they would have improved their potency and like just their impact and their meaningfulness. And it's funny because they do have a kind of safety net. Like if you don't want to watch them at any campfire, you can go to the reminisce option and watch them. But like you might forget when they were and stuff. Like they seem so out of context at points if you too far away from when it was supposed to be watched. And it's like, that's a little awkward now.
And maybe this is a me thing, but I can't imagine I'm the only person that feels that way. Like when you open your phone, right, and you see the little, like if you're using an iPhone, you see the little like red bubble that says you have some notification for some dumb thing. There's just a part of me that is like, just get that off my screen.
Yeah.
I kind of feel that way about skits because you see, like, you hit R1, you got a skit, and it's just like, my eyes just go right, like, I can't just ignore it. Like, I have to hit it, and I agree. I think oversaturation is a really good way to describe that issue for sure. The other thing, Damiani, and I don't know if you experienced this, but we were lucky enough that you got sent to Tails Code, and I also got sent to Tails Code, and we got the deluxe, whatever it is, deluxe ultimate, whatever it's called, edition of the game, and I just kind of downloaded it without thinking, and then I get into the game, and it's like, hey, dude, you get like way more experience and skill points, and everything's cheaper, and cooking is easier. And it's just like
you didn't get the
everything?
Okay, so
it's pretty nuts.
Blood didn't forward you the warning email from them.
He probably did, and I didn't read it.
Read it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and seeing I was reviewing it, okay, I know what you're getting at. And go ahead, Yuki.
I mean, like, on one hand, it's kind of nice, but I feel like it's also neutering the experience behind this paywall that feels gross.
Yeah, Tails has always had, as long as I can remember, Tails has had this crap. Okay. Where you can go on day one and you can buy like these like kits basically that give you like extra money, experience boosters, or just like straight up buy levels. I remember like Vesperi, whatever, you could just like buy levels. I mean, there's a cap on how many you could do, but it's like buy 20 levels. So it's like you got near level cap, like the cap was 100 or 200. Like those last 20 levels, you want to grind it out, buy it then. And like there's stuff like that. So it's always been around. Now the thing is, I read the thing and it like warned you, like you really like if you use this, it's gonna make the game it's gonna make it much easier than it should be.
Yes.
And I was like, all right, I'm not getting this stuff. And I downloaded the costume stuff, but I did not download the 2 that included the EXP buff.
Yeah, I wanted the costumes.
And the other one was the money discount. The costume ones were all safe.
Dude,
there was
two messing with the economy.
There's 2 specific ones that like reduced the amount of items needed to craft stuff. It made crafting easier. It made cooking easier. It made buying stuff like half cost or whatever, and like for the most part in the early game, none of that's a problem. Like you're like for the most of the game, I was rolling in cash and stuff. And but like when you get to the end,
to be fair, I just want to point out very quickly. Sorry for interrupting you, but Tails is very flexible in the sense that you can go into the options at any time and crank it up or crank it down or whatever you want on the fly. It's very flexible, and so you can take it as seriously as I feel like you want to.
Exactly. But I think it would matter more in like the second half to the last third of the game, because it feels like as the dungeon areas get a little bit more prolonged and there's like sort of like boss gauntlet type stuff where you're fighting like tougher enemies. You're going back and buying a lot more items. You feel like you need, like, give you a lot more gear options, and it starts costing a lot more. And I started to burn through cash. There's even like a remark from one of the characters goes, "You spent that much money already?" It's like pretty cool. But like, I feel like if I would have not even, I was a little bit worried about my resources, because it's like, man, I spent like a third on that one pop. A third of my resources are gone. Hope there aren't too many more of these. But if I was using those things, I wouldn't have even given it a second thought. It would have been trivial. So it's nice to have those. I will say in its defense, for people who don't want, even on story, like they don't want any kind of resistance. They just like want to enjoy the game. Sure, you're the one activating this stuff. It's on you at this point. But it stinks that it's paid. It feels like, because this stuff can be unlocked via certain in-game mechanisms, especially through New Game Plus. It's like,
well, New Game Plus, it's like
exactly.
Whatever.
This feels more like this is the stuff that should have been like New Game Plus as bonuses, and they're there. And I was like, oh, I got these now. Weren't these the things that are in there? Oh, I just got them anyway for beating the game.
Yeah, it's less of an issue for me because I'm not reviewing the game, but it kind of put me in this situation because I was like, this is making me feel weird. Like, I'm like torn on it, where it's like, well, do I just roll with it and it's whatever, or do I, start over without this stuff or get the PC version. It's just like I don't know what to do, and I don't like that I'm in this situation to begin with.
It puts you in an uncomfortable situation when they present it to you. So it's like, even the fact that they gave it to us, I was like, it just sucks because it's on there. So like, I was glad that like when I beat the game, I made like a hard save like right before the final boss, and it's like you can go in there and you can see they're called artifacts. It basically unlocks artifacts, and that gives you all these bonuses. There are artifacts in the game you can obtain anyway that get like that you earned through exploration or beating an optional boss.
Yeah.
So you can go in there and you'll see like it will show the DLC is not claimed. So I was like, here you go. I made a save file at the end. So it's like it proves I did not claim any of this shit before the end. So I was like, I don't want to use this stuff.
Wait, it shows up on your save file if you'd used it?
Well, if you claim it, there's a menu option for something called artifacts in your field notes, and it'll show you which are activated, and you can't turn them off. That's the problem.
That's
the real problem.
Exactly. That's the thing that we didn't touch on.
Yeah.
Is I went into the thing and I was like, "Am I missing something? Like, why can't I turn this off?"
That's the
It's because I just claimed all of the DLC is what I did, because I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever, just."
I'm surprised.
Not thinking that it would have this effect.
Surprised there isn't a patch, or we'll be surprised if there's never a patch that allows you to toggle those on and off, because they let you toggle and like change everything else. And to be fair, if you want to play in the hardest difficulty, there's hard, and then when you beat the game, you'll unlock something called chaos.
Yeah.
If you play on chaos at max level, like the harder bosses, like you need to know how to play. Like just being max level isn't going to guarantee you're going to roll through stuff on chaos. It's kind of like, I like that about Tales. Eventually, it will make you, if you want to, you can play the game where it'll make you honest, where you need to know how to play the game.
Sure.
It's just like finding those settings where you feel comfortable. And
well, it's just weird that this conversation, I feel like, would be so much different if there was just like, yeah, just toggle it off. You just want the vanilla experience
Assassin's Creed
after you claimed it? Like, that's weird.
Assassin's Creed has a similar thing. This reminded me of that, just the XP boost that you can buy. And it was never an issue for me because that game is so easy, even on hard, that it was like, it's there for people who want it. I'm not going to use it. But I remember it just also being like this controversial thing of like, behind the paywall, you know, more XP. So it is weird. Like, I don't like it. It feels gross, like you said earlier, Ben.
Right.
It's just like a gross, unnecessary thing, especially for an open world game. It's just like, let me just earn all this stuff in the game.
Right.
Like,
right. Exactly. We're at a point with modern gaming where, you know, this is just one example, but I feel like depending on the game, particularly within the AAA space, there's always like something where it's like you're just throwing a wrench in this thing. Like you're just making this way more complicated than it needs to be. Like you're creating this controversy, or you're creating this doubt, right? Where like there'll be times where it's like, should I get this version or that version? What am I missing out on? And they do it intentionally. It's so you spend the most amount of money, but it's just this really gross layer.
That's the worst thing about the Assassin's Creed thing, is the shop, the real money shop that has all the sick armors, and that's the only place you can get them. You can earn the currency in the game if you grind it out, fair enough, but like having things that can only be bought with real money, that's when I'm
these
like,
things you can get these things through normal
in-game,
game. None of this stuff is, as far as I know, is restricted. It's New Game Plus. You get it's called not gold, grade. But like that doesn't even exist yet. Like you used to have to spend points at the end of a New Game Plus to unlock certain things. It just presented me with a bunch of stuff that was automatically and I could toggle them on and off. Now, again, that was only before that I started the file. Once you started the file, it's like these are locked in.
Right. So wait, when you start the file, does it say, do you want these things?
So it brings up, when you do New Game Plus, it brings up a menu.
But not regular New Game.
No, not regular New Game. Like New Game Plus, it brings up and it loads the clear file. It brings up a menu and has like the different options, like 2x experience, like bring over all your arts and like all your like, skit stats, like everything. You can carry over basically everything, but you can toggle it all on and off from there, one time only. And once you begin, you're with those settings. Now, if you keep that clear file, you could start a New Game Plus and start again and choose different options. So I mean, you can kind of like save scum a little bit to like make it how you want, but one thing that was not available in the review that I saw Story start publishing, and when people finally got access to it, because there was some day one DLC. Apparently, there are costume sets that unlock skill tree stuff.
I saw this.
That is only available through getting those costumes. I'm like, wait, because I saw there was a trophy I got for unlocking 400 skills, but it said non-DLC, and I'm like, DLC? I'm like, is that just worded wrong? Because like I got DLC costumes, but none of them unlocked any like skill tree stuff. I was like, maybe they mean other. And then day one was right there, and apparently one of the skills for I guess law is like OP, and I'm like, oh, I was like, okay.
This is exactly the type of shit that drives me insane. Like sometimes I don't want to have to read a document or a graph to play a game. Sometimes I just want to hit play and lose myself in a world without, these questions. And like, I really am torn on it because it was like, well, this happened, like whatever. Like SMT5 is gonna come out. That's gonna rip me a new asshole. Like maybe I'll just go through Tales and it'll be chill. And there's nothing wrong with that. I wouldn't begrudge anybody for playing this game or any other game in any way that they wanted to. But it's just like, I don't know. It's just like you'll play and then something will happen and you'll be like, that was a little bit too easy. And rather than just being like, or too hard or whatever it is, and rather than just being like, oh, that's an evaluation of this game, you like are like, wait, what if it's my fault? And it's just, it just creates this like doubt that just feels like it shouldn't be there. It's just really weird.
It shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
It devalues the game, It kind of cheapens it a little bit. Just knowing that stuff is available, just kind of colors it weird,
Yeah. I guess moving away from that mess, the last thing I want to say, and I feel like I kind of had this sentiment with Disgaea 6 as well, where I like combat-wise, I think it's definitely very comparable to other Tales games, I guess without getting into the nitty-gritty, but it's still just so much fun. I think the core sort of action-oriented, very fluid, dodging around, doing very flashy moves.
How's Demon Fang?
With what's that?
How's Demon Fang?
Demon Fang is Demon Fang. It's certainly in there.
It's my favorite move ever.
Yeah.
Do they still like say it when you do the move? Yes. Yes.
I just think that like if you have not experienced that Tales combat, I think kind of what you were saying, Damiani, where like eventually it can push you and you can you really have to learn how to play the game. I do think, based on what you're saying, that depth is definitely there, but Tales is just so elastic where it's like, do you just want to feel like a god? You can feel like a god. Do you really want to strategize and think about like the arts that you're bringing to combat, yada, yada? You can do that. And I guess I just appreciate the elasticity of the combat. Like it's fun in a bunch of different ways, both in terms of just like raw, it's fun to push buttons, and there is some strategy that can go into it.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to like look cool hitting buttons, I mean, this game does it the best.
Yeah,
it's the flashiest one. They threw all these extra layers on there. That's like the finishers. They've had different types of finishers for every single game, but it's like this time around, it's like you team up with another person. You do this elaborate cutscene style attack that like just looks bonkers and like insane. It's like the coolest thing. Just to finish like a remedial enemy and stuff. It's like, whoa, that's awesome. Then you got your mystic arts in there as well. Like how you, I like how you unlock the second ones. It's through bonds, Huber.
Nice.
It's through bonds that you unlock the second mystic
bonds
arts.
and Tales.
They got that, and then they got like each character has a special action, which I just call them assist, basically, because even characters who aren't in your active roster, who are on the bench, can still be called in to help you out. And we were talking about this, like they each have a like unique purpose. Like Alphen's the first one will like basically will break any enemy's guard. So like they're now in break status. So like you can juggle them and go into like a longer combo there.
Yes.
Whereas you have like Xion, if you launch someone in the air, you want to activate hers in the air because it does like the most damage in the air, but also she can break enemies who are airborne as well and bring them to the ground, and then you can start doing your juggle combo there. Later, people get like there's a spellcaster you get. She can counter other spellcasters, especially even bosses who are doing like big ultimate casts. You can interrupt them. You get someone who's like basically a tank who can take charging enemies and like knock them over and stop them from
You
them.
have 4 at a time, 4 party members on the field?
You have 4 active on time, and you can have more than 4 eventually. And like all 6 or 6, there's 6 characters. There's 6 level characters, but eventually you can like get all of them like lit up and activate them also if you really want. Like if you don't care about how the strategy goes, you just want to see cool shit. Just call 6 assistants.
Well, and then there's like another layer on top of that, where as you're fighting enemies, you build up this meter, and then you get like a super version of one of those where it's 2 of them, and they have like this little cinematic that plays. And speaking of bonds, they'll have, it's like this person and this person will unite, dual tech, for a special attack.
Do they say some like cool anime things when they do it?
There's one where
It's over.
There's a knight you get in your party. She creates a giant like earthen wall. She goes like, "I'll stop your movement," and she does this big thrust with her shield to like create this giant wall that like blocks the enemy. And then your like monk character goes, "And I'll stop your life," and just like this jumps over it, and there's like this dive kick into their face. It's like it's so ridiculous looking, but it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Hell yeah.
It's a good time. It's just, it's like, I kind of want the PC version anyway. Do I just buy that version and start over and not worry about any of this stuff? I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen people on the Steam version complain about controller support gets bonked or something. Like it gets screwed up.
Great.
Like they're waiting for a patch to like fix it, or there might be someone out there who already wrote something like that fixes it.
There is. I mean, I don't know if this would. I don't know what the issue is, so I don't know if it would fix this direct issue, but something that is nice about Steam is you can apply different controller configurations, and the community can make their own controller configurations. So I don't know if that helps or not. But
yeah, it's something new that people have said, the hype going into Tales of Arise was pretty strong. And the last time that I was heavily invested was Vesperia. Finished Symphonia of Vesperia when they came out. Fell off the Tales train.
Yeah.
But leading up to Tales of Arise, I was like, yo, I really, 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 really want to play this one. Definitely going to play it when I get back. So it just feels like kind of a new beginning for this franchise as someone on the outside kind of looking back in.
Yeah, it's been really enjoyable so far. I mean, even in spite of the whole DLC nonsense, I've really had a great time ultimately, and I think that is what is most important. And it really speaks to, and this is something that we talk about, I think, pretty regularly, how important timing is for games, because I just feel like it's coming out at the right time. It's not that there aren't other great games, but in this particular space, I don't feel like there are other things competing for its attention.
AAA JRPG space.
Right. Like SMT5 is still a couple of months away. Endwalker is still a couple of months away. It's like, yeah, I would probably prioritize those things over this. And so it coming out now in September, I'll have enough time to get through it. Yeah. While I'm, working on those other things. And so I think that is just really important. You said it, Huber, and as soon as you said it, I was like, yeah, I think you're right. In terms of like, this is like extremely well-reviewed Tales game, and I wonder if that will translate over into sales, and I imagine it absolutely will.
Damiani.
I know what you said already.
You out.
I know what you said.
Calling him out?
No, I just like proving Damiani wrong sometimes. Because I was like, dude, this is a couple weeks ago. I was like, I have a feeling this is going to be the highest reviewed and highest selling Tales game in the series, period.
Yeah, as soon as you said that, I was like, yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Tommy was like, no.
Did I really say no?
Yeah, check the tape.
Okay.
You were like, I don't think so.
We'll see. Maybe we're not gonna make this a bet, I guess, but I really do want to know. Yeah. Like, I'm very curious.
Well, it beat Vesperia and Zesteria's like day one sales combined.
Damn.
But that's 2 of the
lower ones.
I don't know. Like if they said Symphonia and like Vesperia, like when we start mentioning
Vesperia,
those 2,
yeah,
that's when you're talking about taking the top honors there. Yeah.
Well. You're talking about like Vesperia and Symphonia. At the time, those were locked to single consoles.
GameCube.
And so that I imagine that makes a difference as well. But yeah, I'm really curious.
Really quickly before we move on, you guys have been on the Tales train. Like, I don't think you guys got off. Is this one of your favorites now? Like, is this the best one since Vesperia?
I'm not nearly far enough to make that evaluation. I wouldn't. But that said, it totally wouldn't surprise me if I finished it and I was like, yeah, this is my favorite Tales game.
Nice.
Yeah, it's my favorite since Vesperia.
Nice.
I don't know.
Nice. There it is.
For the time, yeah, if it surpasses that or not.
Yeah.
But I mean, the only other two like I generally like a lot are obviously Symphonia and then Tales of the Abyss.
Nice.
Like those are like my 4. This now with them joins those 3 is like in my top.
It's hard comparing it to Symphonia for me because Symphonia was my first Tales game, and it was like, whoa, I've never played anything like this.
That was when the action RPG combat was
young.
like, what?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like,
it was like...
The fact that I was like hitting people on the battlefield in a JRPG, I was like, this is crazy.
It sounds so naive, but when you're like, I don't know, 12, you're like, oh, I didn't know they could do this. Yeah. And you're just like, yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and you're like, well, Lloyd is sick.
Yeah. Two swords.
Yes. Yes.
It was so cool.
Oh, sometimes I miss the innocence of those days.
The innocence, yes. No, like, buy this fast XP shit.
Yeah. I feel like I remember like having conversations where it's like, no, like, you can move around in combat, and like when you hit a button, it's like it sounds so quaint now, but at the time it really was a big deal.
Yo, this chair is rickety. I'm switching out.
Okay, well, Huber, we're going to you next because a game, you know, you get passionate about a lot of games. I think that's fair to say, as do I, but when you talk about Life is Strange, it's like you're talking about a dearly, like a family or a friend you haven't seen in a long time. It's like a physical person to you in a way that I think is fascinating.
It is. I look at it like differently than I look at video games for sure. It is such a special thing in my life, without a doubt.
So with that amount of importance on it, I mean, does Life is Strange True Colors live up to that legacy?
1000%. There were some technical issues on consoles, which kind of held it back a little bit for me, unfortunately. Just with the review and stuff, you know, I gave it an 8, wanted to give it higher, but just some technical issues, like locked on 30 on next-gen consoles, but 60 on PC. But then Deck 9 was saying, like, yo, we made it 30 because it's a cinematic experience, but then the PC version is 60. So it was like really weird, and just some like weird kind of like little hiccups, you know, when you're kind of moving around town that kind of hitch it a little bit. They said they're looking into it, so I expect, you know, like most games, you always talk about this. It's like, why do we even play games when they come out? Because you know they're going to be better in like a month or 2.
Yeah. No, it was a conversation, you know, we came to that conclusion, but it's also like, well, I also can't wait. Like there's like a threshold of caring, right? That's what it really is all about. Where it's like you and I earlier today, we were like Darkest Dungeon 2. You know that game is not, when it launches, it's not even going to be close to complete. They're going to add so much stuff to Darkest Dungeon 2
a year
that like
plus.
You might as well wait.
Yeah.
Can't wait. Need to the microsecond that thing is available. Yeah, like it's like a junkie getting a fix. It's like right into the veins. Yeah.
So okay, good. That stuff out of the way. Some technical issues.
That's
whatever.
a bummer, though.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Damn.
Yeah, but it was one of those things too, where after like a little bit, you just settle into it, because like until recently, like FPS, frame rates, it never really bothered me. Like I notice it more now that I'm more aware of it, but like never really bothered me. Whatever. So settled into it.
Is it just more ambitious, like in its environments, like in comparison to the past
it's
efforts?
Definitely the best looking Life is Strange, without a doubt. Like really good performance capture. You can see so many subtle nuances in people's faces. Just like, I start crying every time I think about Alex Chen, dude. Like legitimately one of my favorite characters of all time. Like period. Like just such a phenomenal main character to get behind. So True Colors, no spoilers. You are Alex Chen. You've been living in foster care for the last 8 years, and you go to Haven Springs, Colorado to visit your brother. And you go there, and unlike Life is Strange 2, which was a road trip, you know, Life is Strange 2 has dramatically different chapters. Each chapter is so different than the last. This one, you settle into Haven Springs. You are in this town. And you just grow to love these characters, love this environment. Like, there's the marijuana dispensary, there's the record store, there's the bar, and you actually live above that. You have your little apartment. You can even like go upstairs, and there's like the balcony up there. You can like tend to the garden. So this location is just excellent. Absolutely love it.
I have a weird comment to make that I'm worried that I'm not going to articulate it right, because my experience with Life is Strange is I played the first 2 episodes and I started the third one, and I really enjoyed them, and it was nice because it was a great game to play with my wife, because she doesn't really care about gameplay, she really cares about stories, right? And so obviously there's more of a focus there, but for me, it's always a lot harder. And this is a weird thing to say because a lot of my favorite games are RPGs, which are very story-driven as well. But the older I get, I value gameplay just as much, if not more. And it's not that I don't think Life is Strange is good. It's just sometimes I'm just like, I just want to like play. Yeah. And with True Colors, do you feel like you're having an opportunity to do that, to interact with things or utilize the abilities of these characters in a way that is like genuinely interesting on a gameplay level?
Great question. Yeah. Can't spoil things. There are a lot of mini games, I will say, that really break up kind of the conversations and everything. One chapter is like all gameplay, and it would be your favorite for sure. I'm not going to say what it is. I'm just not going to say anything about it, but it's friggin' awesome. And it dramatically changes the way you're playing, but it is all gameplay focused. But then I think because we're in this town, there are opportunities to explore it and to go around, find things. So to me, that is the gameplay of like, who do I want to talk to? You know, it'll say, oh, I got to get home, but I can also like go check in on this person if I want to. So you could like go and do a whole thing with other characters or kind of just explore around. It's more exploration. So that to me is the gameplay, is exploring. And of course, all the conversations, the vast majority of them, you're choosing dialogue, you know, you're dictating what you want to say, how you want to frame everything. Yeah. So yeah. Without getting into spoilers though, there are some really cool things that True Colors does versus the other Life is Strange games. I will say, one thing I loved gameplay-wise about Life is Strange 2 is the economy. Because you're on the run in that game, and it's a road trip. Your money carries over from chapter to chapter.
That's a really cool idea.
Your little brother is fucking starving. Right. You have $5 in your pocket. Like, do I steal? Do I spend the money? So, like, I'm looking in dumpsters, trying to find coins. Like, so I loved that in Life is Strange 2. I wish there was something like that in True Colors to kind of like tie it all together, but there's not really anything like that. It's more of just about the bonds and the characters and just kind of exploring this town.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but Life is Strange 1, Life is Strange 2, Life is Strange Before the Storm, all episodic games. They'll have individual parts.
Yep.
True Colors, like a
complete package. It is divvied up into chapters still.
Sure. But release-wise.
Released all at the same time. All about personal preference, how you like to consume games. I loved the episodic nature. I just adored it. I loved finishing an episode, talking to Bloodworth about it, like sitting on it for so long, standing in the shower, just daydreaming about what would happen next. Like, and then you get 5 releases of a game. You get to get this game 5 times in a way. Like, oh, it's coming out in a week. Like, you get to have that excitement each time, and like just the buildup is so awesome. Whereas this one, you know, obviously for review, I beat it in 4 nights. One time I did 2 chapters, and then the other chapters I just did one at a time. Personally, I think a little bit is lost there.
Sure.
But that's just personally. It's all personal preference. I mean, Damiani, you love to wait for things to all come out and binge.
Literally
like, I know
about to bring up, like, because that's you, Huber.
Yeah.
You always talk about you love the week-to-week stuff.
Yeah,
You're saying you're speaking to Huber. I mean, that's what you like. You like that immediacy, the immediate gratification, but also having that thing to look forward to.
Totally.
Whereas this really sounds like it's the binge watch Netflix dump where it's all available to you, but like it's all over. It's done.
Yeah,
like
it's done
it's
already.
like a flash in the pan, and then like
fast.
there's nothing to look forward to. It's like, oh, where's
Fortunately,
the next?
there is a DLC episode coming at the end of the month, which is really cool. And then also next year we'll get the remaster. So there's stuff to look forward to in the franchise, but like it ended so fast. I will say though, Life is Strange 2 was the road trip, and it was a longer period of time that it did make sense to have those gaps narratively and in real life. Whereas it is a focused, shorter story. So like binging it or finishing it in a week kind of makes sense. So narratively and contextually, it kind of adds up that way.
This is a tangent, so forgive me, but you just mentioned that feeling of wanting more and it not being there. And it's such a bittersweet feeling. And I just went through that because the Matrix 4 trailer dropped. I think I've watched that trailer probably, we're getting to like 10 times based on just watching the trailer itself and watching like analysis videos and stuff. And I was like, this is getting me so excited. So that trailer has been out for what? A few days? In that time, I have watched Matrix 1, Matrix 2, Matrix 3, and Animatrix.
Hell yeah.
Because I just was so hyped. And I was like, well, I guess I'll play Enter the Matrix. And so it's just like, I'm like very quickly running out of Matrix, and I'm like, I just want more. And I love that feeling. I love being so attached to something that like, you want to wring out every possible drop. And so to have that experience with you in Life is Strange, even, you know, and I think that really speaks to the quality of it, because there have been a lot of Life is Strange games.
This is the fourth one technically. Well, Captain Spirit was like a one-off. But
but
like
in
fourth.
the vein.
Yeah.
And I feel like almost against all odds, like it's really cool seeing the success and can kind of continue, like relatively quick continuation of this stuff. That's so cool. I think the thing from a slightly outside perspective, the thing that's a little bit difficult for me, I think is also probably what is most appealing to it, is it's like, because you care about it so much, I can tell that you're like, I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah, I don't want to say anything.
Right. And when story is just such a focal point, I think it can be hard to kind of like wrap your head around it, where it's like, okay, how is this different? Like, why is it special? Not that it isn't. I totally believe that it is. But it, like, I pretty much just bought True Colors on blind faith. Where I'm like, I don't know anything, and I feel like I shouldn't. And but then you get into the thing where it's like, do I need to play the other Life is Stranges? Can I just play True Colors?
Yeah, you can dive in. There's one returning character from Before the Storm, because this is Deck 9. So Deck 9 did Before the Storm and this one. And Don't Nod, the creators of the franchise, did 1 and 2 and Captain Spirit. Their future with the franchise is semi-uncertain. You know, they went off to do Twin Mirror and Tell Me Why, and they're kind of like, hey, it's up to Square Enix about what goes down. Deck 9 did a tremendous job with this, but one character returns. It's Steph from Before the Storm, who's amazing. And just what really sells this one, you know, you're talking about Tales of Arise, Damiani, just the nuance. Like, this is just, it might be the best written Life is Strange by far, honestly.
Wow.
Like, from top to bottom, the writing, the acting, like 2 could be a little heavy-handed sometimes. It was dealing with like social injustice, racism, you know, some things were really on the nose, especially in the earlier chapters of that one. And just as someone who like dealt with a lot of the things Alex goes through, it never felt expletive. It felt so real, so authentic, and just nuanced and just real.
You really touched on something that has bothered me, not necessarily in True Colors, because I haven't played True Colors, but in other media just across the board, because I absolutely want things to because art reflects life, right? And I want things to talk about contemporary issues in an insightful, intelligent way, but it's so tricky because like I always respect like people's hearts can be in the right place, but if you are too heavy-handed, it just feels artificial in a way that you can't get immersed in it anymore. Where it's like, oh, like this is your message and it's a good message, but it's you're presenting it in such a way that it just doesn't feel real. Yeah, and that is so difficult, and I don't envy anybody trying to weather that storm.
Absolutely,
it's a very, very difficult thing to go through.
Yeah, like I know a lot of people who hard outed Life is Strange 2 after episode 1, and like it's one of my favorite games of all time because of the brothers, the Diaz bros, and it's like. I get that. Like, episode 1 is really heavy-handed. It's, like, really in your face, kind of on the nose, and it settles down into it while still being there, obviously, in the future episodes. But True Colors, like, never even had a moment like that where I was like, what? Like, this is too much. Like, it was just so natural, so real, so good.
You saying it is the best written, I think, is really high praise because I tremendously value writing, and I think something that really struck me about my experience in Life is Strange, one is how authentically it really captured adolescent life. And I think that, again, kind of talking about like the serious issues thing, capturing adolescence, you run into the danger of being like, hello, fellow kids, that meme where it's like, they're trying to be adolescent, but that's like, this is not how kids talk. And I think Life is Strange did a better job than most on the emotional whirlwind that is that life in a way that was good. So hearing that they get even better, I think, is a very compelling thing.
Yeah, like, me with play this before that, go in order, blah, blah, blah. Like, Steph returns from Before the Storm. Yeah. But honestly, like, if you've never played this series or if you've been hesitant, I feel like True Colors is a really good place to just jump in.
Yeah.
Like, if you've been waiting for the remaster, maybe if you're holding off for the remasters, like, this, like, if you jump in here, you could get attached to the series and then go from there.
It's funny because when they were when they announced True Colors and the Life is Strange remasters, we were both like, it's weird that the remasters are coming out later. Yeah. But now, in the moment, it's almost a blessing because I'm like, well, I'm not going to get caught up into the remaster because I'm going to wait for those better versions. Yeah. I'll just play it's like it's almost removing some anxiety, like some backlog anxiety where it's like I'll just play True Colors.
Absolutely.
Which is kind of nice.
No fear, no baggage, just jump right in. You don't need any other context or anything, and then if you like it, then you can peruse the rest of the series, or if you're like, oh, I don't really like this, then there you go.
Well, if it sounds like if you like I want to have the emotional response that you're having to it where it's like
I don't know how anyone could not feel things when they play this game. Truly. Like, it's just good. Like, period. So.
Going back to just very, very briefly, Tales of Arise, it's like another thing that I think is so much fun to kind of be like, like if you've never played Tales or been curious about it, it's like, this is it. Like,
Jump
this is
in.
your one. Like, you want to just like have a neon sign about it, like start here,
enter here. Yeah. Totally. I will say though, price. This is a full price title, and that's
well. It's funny that you say that. When you say full price, you mean $60 or $70?
$60 for this thing.
Because they can vary.
Yeah, because the other ones were like, I think Life is Strange 2 might have been like 25 or 30 because they were episodic. So full price here, and it made it harder to overlook those technical shortcomings. So just know that going in, full price game here.
Boy, there is a game that I just reviewed. The review went up today. That I had no idea what to expect. I mean, other than like it being an Arcane game and the legacy that studio has, there were a lot of questions that I had about Deathloop. And to get this out of the way, I have really significant criticisms with Deathloop, but there really wasn't any point that I wasn't having a blast. And I think that is ultimately where I landed on, where I'm like, every time I play this game, I'm just having fun. And I think that element is so important, but outside of the game itself, one, it's not as complicated or as it seems, and I almost wish they would have been a little bit more direct in their marketing, because I say that and I think it could have sold some of the best aspects of this game more strongly than some of the trailers did. Boy, how to talk about this game. Okay. And I just said it wasn't that complicated, but it sort of is comparable to a roguelike in the sense that you dart off in a place and you acquire weapons, you acquire powers, and you can, every day, it's a Groundhog Day situation where the day resets. And you can spend currency to infuse your gear, essentially, so you can have it on the next thing. And whenever you go to a new location, so there are different points throughout this day that repeat. So there's the morning, there's noon, there's the afternoon, and there's night. Every time you go into a new place, a new time period, you get 3 lives. So if you lose those lives, that's it. And what is really cool about the system in Deathloop is how repetition plays into the narrative. Like, this is a game where I think the structure of it is seamlessly intertwined with the narrative in a really, really, really cool way. And what I mean by that is Colt, as a character, is stuck in this situation, and then you as a player mechanically are stuck in a situation, and you as the player don't know what's going on. You don't know what the situation is. You don't know why it's happening. You don't know why people are cool with it. You just have no idea, and neither does he. And then the way you figure that out is the game is like, here are all these leads. Like, just go and figure it out. And you do that, and you'll get another little breadcrumb that'll go in this direction, and then you'll get to the next time period, and it's like, oh, I can't follow this lead in the afternoon. I'll have to wait until the next morning, and so I'll go off in a different direction. And so it's like this spider web that's kind of just like slowly expanding, and the more that you explore, the more knowledge that you get, which obviously informs your understanding of the story. But knowledge is really like, the way that knowledge becomes its own reward is super fascinating. Because, like, obviously you get more comfortable with the weapons and the abilities that you have, but as you go through the areas, you're like, oh, I know that, like, this security thing is there, or this turret is there, or that there are enemies here. And, like, it gets to a point, like, pretty quickly where it's like, I can be in and out of this level in, like, a minute, right? And so it feels very different than Dishonored, where, going through levels, going through the story, going to a new level is like, oh, I'm just, like, lost. And it's like, I need to figure out a way to accomplish my objectives, and as I do that, there's going to be a bunch of things that I don't see. Whereas in Deathloop, I feel like I had a very by the end, I had a very thorough understanding of each area, because you're just kind of like slowly peeling it back. And I remember first playing Deathloop, where you don't know what's going on. You don't even know, like, where you can go, really. And you're like, oh, that's it. This feels very small. But as you keep coming back, you're like, oh, this is here. Oh, this is here. Oh, this is here. And so it just feels very rewarding and cool in that sense. And so it's exciting to keep coming back to these areas and learn more and more.
Does the game provide any kind of mechanism to keep track of this stuff, or was it never overwhelming? Okay. Yeah.
Yes, and so that is a very natural concern.
Yeah.
But the way that they do it is really cool. It's not an actual, like, bulletin board. So you know when you watch, like, TV procedurals, and they always have that board where they're like, okay, this is connected to this, is connected to this. They have what is essentially that, but it's far more organized, and it's. The way it's laid out is really, really, really smart, because you'll have kind of these story leads, and it'll be like, okay, here's like this column. These are all these different directions that you can go. And within those columns, there are these lines where it's like, if you just want to keep focusing on this thing, you can go down that path and go as far as you can go. And what I'm trying to say is the way that it's laid out, the story happens very organically. And I say it in the review, and I think it's really true, where I think Arcane is trying to walk this really fine line between giving you a bunch of freedom and giving you a bunch of choice and making you feel like you're uncovering things, and also being very guided where it's like, okay, like you don't know where to go, like go here. We'll give you a marker you can run off. And I actually think they do both. They manage it where I did feel like I was very guided, but I also felt like I was making decisions and doing what they wanted me to do, but kind of in my own way. Because what's neat is they have sort of this bulletin board that is just kind of focused on story and who you're supposed to kill. But then they have an entirely separate one where it's just like, yo, do you want some new powers and weapons? Like, these may not necessarily be strictly connected to the story, but if you want to, you can just go after these things kind of independently. And a lot of the powers are tied to people that are in the story, and so it's more mixed than that. But what I'm trying to say is it's kind of cool that you have the decision of, it's like, do I want to advance the story or do I just want to go after this gun? I can't necessarily do both. And you just have a lot of situations that are like that, where you do have to make a choice, at least for this loop, which is really neat. And in classic Arcane fashion, you know, if you've played Dishonored, like once you get the shift ability, the blink ability, you're like, dude, I can go anywhere. Like I can go to the tip top of this building, and like they account for that. Like you'll be like, oh, they left that window open on purpose, and that's so satisfying that you feel like you can kind of approach all of these areas in a bunch of different ways and be rewarded for that. But the best part of the game, what really makes Deathloop special, is the invasion system.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about
this.
this.
It's so cool. So the way that it works...
I'm worried that I'm going to play this game in 2 weeks and every invader is just going to destroy me.
Not a problem, because there's flexibility to it. So if you want, you can... There's 3 different ways that you can set up the invasion. You can have it be online, like anybody can invade me. Or you can have it be like, just my friends can invade me, where it's like, I know Brad and I are playing this at the same time, so we're going to be, you know, at a similar level of knowledge.
Yeah.
And so that's really cool. Or you can just have it single player mode. And you, in between, like every spot that you go, you can switch it. Like you have total control over it. And so there were definitely times where it's like, yeah, I just want to move on with the story. And you can do... Or there's like, oh, no, I want a little extra challenge, and you can do that. And I think that flexibility is really key.
Nice.
Because it makes the invasions a fun thing and not a thing that, like, it never becomes a thing like you have to deal with.
Nice.
Because what's cool about the single-player thing is it's definitely, without question, it's way easier to deal with single-player invasions, because what happens is you still get invaded, but it's AI.
Yeah.
They're way dumber than a player is, but... there's still some excitement to it because you don't know when it's going to happen. And what happens when you get invaded is Colt has these tunnels that he uses to get from place to place. Whether it's the AI or a player, whenever you get invaded, your tunnels get blocked off. And you have to go to this antenna and you have to hack this antenna to open up your tunnels again. And sometimes, you know, like the antenna's close by and it's not that big of a deal, but sometimes you're like, fuck, that's way out of the way. And so even when it's just the AI, there is kind of this like, oh, I wasn't expecting this, I have to deal with this kind of thing. And even the AI is good at creating surprises sometimes where it's like, oh, they put a trap in my exit. And it didn't kill me, but it caught me off guard. And so those moments are really, really nice. But obviously it's way more tense when it's an actual player. And boy, it was so... cool because it just changes your entire thought process. Again, you don't know exactly when it's going to happen. And so when it does happen, you're like, okay, do I just wait for them to come? Are they waiting by the antenna that I need to hack? And it's just immediate mind games. And, you know, doing invasions with different people, it was fascinating to see the different ways that they played. Some people charged at me like a rhino and were like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm going in guns blazing. And then some people are like way far away and they're trying to snipe. And it's cool because, again, going back into that repetition and how well it blends with different aspects of the game, the more familiar I was with a level, the more capable I was at dealing with an enemy, because it's like, oh, well, I know they can go here, I know they can go there, and that knowledge really powers you up, you know, and it's not necessarily a tangible thing. It's not a thing that you equip to your character, but it's something that can make a huge difference.
Seems like some good water cooler moments, you know, that's always special with a game. It's like this one aspect that exists kind of outside of it in a way. It's like, I'm sure you have a ton of stories of when like you were, you know, trying to do your objective and you got invaded and some crazy shit went down.
Yeah,
like.
Definitely. And there's a clip in the review where I'm panicking because we're like both running at each other and we're like, it's like in Call of Duty where like you don't expect to run into an enemy and you have that like split second of like both of you just kind of stopping and staring at each other and then you desperately try to melee each other to death. Like that kind of dynamic element of multiplayer really fits well with what Arcane is trying to do, and kind of the like this game just plays so tightly. Like in terms of control, like just shooting and getting and running around, like they've calibrated the movement in such a way where it's so tight, and of course that translates really well when you're dueling off against another player, and it's just it's beautiful. It's so cool, and of course it's also really fun to invade people. And
please, dude, for months I've been wanting to know what is the benefit to invading.
Right. So
for months I've seen
besides these cool stories.
When you play as Juliana, she has like a hunter rank. And so you're limited in terms of what you can equip. So you level her up, and you get more options with what you can do. So you're building up that character. Whereas like, so it's just a totally different philosophy than Colt, because Colt, when you're playing, you get your things by scavenging, by exploring, by you know, killing the AI. Whereas here it's like you level up, you get more options, you can do more stuff. Cool. Also, you unlock new outfits not only for her but for Colt as well. And so there's
fashion,
different, so there's
that's all you need to say.
So there's cosmetic things where it's like, oh, I couldn't get this unless I played as Juliana.
Nice.
And so that's a big part of it as well.
That's nice. That's nice.
How do you initiate an invasion? Like, is it a mode or is it an item? Like, sorry for
right. No. The great question. Fantastic question. So when you are playing as Juliana and you want to invade, you get two options, and it's like, do you want to? I believe it's, I should remember this, but I think it's, do you want to invade a friend's world or do you want to invade a random person? And so it's like matchmaking, you just kind of go into it. But when you're Colt, you go into an area and like a red box will appear, it'll be like, Juliana's on your ass. There are rules with it as well. So when I say it is unpredictable, that is true, but Juliana can't constantly keep invading you. I believe it's like once she's invaded you, I don't think she can invade you again in that loop. Or there's
so you can't just keep getting stomped.
Right. So there is a limit to it. And so that really helps, where, again, it kind of becomes this thing that is like unpredictable and very tense, but it's not like, oh God, like I can't do anything. It's not like that.
Yeah, because I'm like, again, I was saying it earlier, just I'm leaving towns, I'm coming back, and it's like you're talking about the map knowledge and leveling up, and it's like, obviously I'm playing with invasions on because I want to feel that tensity, but back in my mind, I'm like, geez, I really hope people are not like full on grinding it out professionals, and I'm just, every time someone invades me, I'm going to just die instantly.
Right. So. Obviously, I played it pre-release, and so it's going to be a very different experience, but the way that I played it was very blended, where played a lot of single player, then I would turn on invasions, and that was great for me.
Yeah.
And so it's nice that you're not locked in.
Yeah. You get that option for single player and kind of the limiter. I feel like they've accounted for that.
There's so many smart design decisions in this game, and another one of those is health doesn't really regenerate. It regenerates a little bit, but to really get healed in the way that you want to heal, you either have to find one-time consumable items that are all over the place, or you have to find these big giant tubes that are much more rare that can heal you up to full. And both when you're getting invaded and just throughout the game in general, you'll have moments where you're like, fuck, that didn't go as planned. I have to stop what I'm doing. I can't just like crouch and it'll be okay. I have to like go out there and branch out in a way that I wasn't expecting, and to get myself healed so I don't die.
The world was kind of turning on this game because honestly, it feels like I've played it because I've seen it so much. It really feels like I have to remember, like, oh no, that was just a preview. That was hands-off preview. Like, I have not played Deathloop. This game is reviewing exceptionally well.
Yeah.
Do you think, like, they showed too much of it? Like, did they need to keep showing this game every single event? Do you think it's not even going to matter now because it's reviewed so well? Like, I saw the reviews, I saw IGN and GameSpot, I gave it a 10, but I'm still just like...
So I want to get back to that.
I'm like kind of exhausted.
Right.
And I haven't even played it, and I'm like feeling kind of exhausted.
Yeah, so Deathloop ran into this weird situation where I remember first seeing it, I was like, whoa, this looks sick. But it just felt like we saw more of it for a very long time.
Yeah.
But when we saw it again, it didn't necessarily do anything to make me want to play it more. It was just like always going back to like that same level. And so it's weird. In a way, like I feel like they showed it too much, but I also don't feel like they really necessarily tapped into what makes it special as well as they could have. And I definitely get the sense that they were just like, they don't want to spoil anything, and I understand that. But I think they could have done it in a way where they got people more excited, they explained it more clearly, and they didn't ruin it at the same time. I do think there's a line there. But seeing IGN and GameSpot give it a 10, I was like, I really love this game. This is my own opinion, of course, but in no way do I think it's a 10. Like, I don't even think it's close to a 10 because as much as I enjoy it and as much as I do, full-heartedly recommend it to people, I think it's a great game. I really do. It is not able to always do what it wants to as well as it wants to. And I think a way to crystallize that, there's different aspects that I can touch on. But the best aspect is I kind of got to a point very quickly where outside of the invasions, absolutely nothing was a threat. And I'm not talking like I'm at the end of the game.
Yeah.
I am way before the end of the game, and I feel like a god in a bad way. Like, obviously, the guns that they give you and the powers that they give you, they want you to feel powerful. But I didn't necessarily feel powerful because what I was doing was powerful. It's like, these enemies are beyond stupid. And I say it in the review, it's like, anytime you have an open-ended game where you get a lot of choice, of course, AI is only going to be able to go so far, right? They're only going to be able to, react so well to what you're doing. But there are countless instances where it's like, it's because of the design where it's like, I feel like I would basically be lighting off a fireworks show and there would be an enemy yards away, and it's like, no, there's a way you can do this where they can understand what is going on. Like, I have played games with AI that is more reactive in this situation, or it's like in the beginning, right, when you're at your most vulnerable, when you have a bunch of enemies with machetes running at you, you're like, yeah, they can mess me up. Here, it's like an enemy with a machete. You're bringing a knife to like a nuclear fight. Like you are no threat. And so I think they could have dynamically changed the enemies or had them progress with you in a way that, because honestly my favorite part of this game was the very beginning, where every single upgrade that I was getting, every gun that I was getting, I was like, do I want this? I really like what I'm using. Maybe I should try this out. Would it be more powerful? It got to a point where it's like, I am untouchable. Everything I have is fully upgraded, and I'm not even close. I'm not even close to being done. I still have so much to do, and the enemies just don't evolve in a way to really make you question yourself in a way that I think would really help the game.
That's huge for me, Ben. That's really huge, because Dishonored can get pretty tough, and like difficulty matters so much in this case, because it's like, yo, all this crazy shit you can do, setting up traps, like infiltrating. If I can just run in with a machine gun and kill everyone, then it devalues like all the creativity and all that stuff if like the simplest solution is also the most efficient.
Yes. There was like a switch that flipped, because in any game where stealth is an option, I prefer going stealth. I think it's fun to scout an area and be like, okay, this enemy's here. How am I going to deal with it? I just think it makes things naturally more interesting. There was definitely a moment where I'm like, there is no point in me stealthing a good majority of the time. There's just no point. Like, enemies die immediately. They're no threat. I'm so powerful. It's just like if I'm stealthing, I'm just wasting time. Really.
Yeah, because at least with Dishonored, it's contextual. It's like the RP aspect. You know, I don't want to kill these guards.
Well, and you have a narrative
and
consequence.
you have the narrative consequence, and you want the no kill run and stuff.
Right,
like,
exactly.
There's so much incentive to stealth, even if the game can be easy sometimes. Like,
right.
So yeah, that is.
And I love it in Dishonored because if you do go full chaos, like mechanically the game is so tight that it's fun to do that, but then you have the doubt in your mind where it's like, I'm not going to get the ending that I want. You have things kind of pushing back against you. And I don't know if it's because they're like, well, we're adding in a real player, and like that's way more crazy than a lot of the challenges that would naturally be there. But I almost feel like they overcorrected in a way. The other problem, and this really doesn't have to do with the AI, but again, like well before the ending, so many of the guns that I was seeing and so many of the upgrades for my weapons and upgrades for pretty much everything, it was like, I'm just seeing the same thing over and over again. Like there's no joy in looting because it's either A, not useful, or it's not going to supplant the super powerful build that I already have, or it's just like I'm just seeing the same upgrades over and over again. Like this game could have done with a lot more upgrades, or at least metered them out in a way where I felt like through the entire experience, you know, for as long as I'm going through this story, I'm getting new things. And I felt like that well definitely ran dry in a way that I didn't like. And it's not across the board, right? I do think like the areas that I was going to, the things that I was doing were interesting, but it's just like the nuts and bolts of it. Again, the AI, the things that I was finding got way less exciting, way more quickly than I would have liked. And that's a big deal, and that's definitely a criticism that I have. But I had this because you know when you are reviewing something, it's really just you. It's like a knot. You're just like trying to untangle your emotions, and you're like, okay, how do I really feel about this thing in a way that I feel like is as fair as possible? And I'm like, okay, all the stuff I'm saying I think is super true and super on point and fair criticism. I'm still having a blast, you know, and that's ultimately what I walked away from. And I was like, yeah, even when it's a total pushover, like I love playing it. And I do think that is a strong mark for the game. The other thing where I'm not sure they're able to blend things as well as they could, it comes with the story. Something that I love is the people that you need to kill are just so fucking despicable. Like there was one guy in particular where I had to do this lead, and by the time it was over, I was like, I want to kill this motherfucker so bad. And so they do a great job of really making these people either just super annoying or despicable in some way, and I love that. I love when you have some animosity toward an assassination. I think that's a really good aspect that games don't always do very well. And I do like Colt, and I do like Juliana. They certainly have attitude. They certainly have life to them. But the way things are kind of laid out is not very seamless. And so, like, pretty much every time you go into a new area, Juliana will call you up on the radio, and her and Colt will shit-talk each other. And it's like, oh, this is great. And it is great, but when you get to like the 20th time of Colt and Juliana being like, fuck you, no, fuck you, and there's a lot of profanity, and I swear more than any other, I have no problem with profanity, but it starts to feel very forced when it's like, if you're saying like essentially fuck you every time, you just start to tune it out. You know, there's no build up toward it. It's like, okay, I know when it's going to happen. It kind of plays out the same way. It's like there has to be a better way or a more meaningful way, a more intelligent way for these characters to interact.
Yeah, think about how impactful Terminator F-words are, you know? It's a rarity. fuck you, asshole.
Yeah.
You feel it.
That's a bummer to hear.
It's a card you play.
Yeah. I feel like I haven't played Deathloop yet, but the only other game that comes to mind that did that for me was the DMC game with Dante's dialogue. It was like you're trying too hard here. Like tone it back. So I don't know if it goes as far as that, but like, yeah, that would definitely great for something like me, because I was hoping that the exchanges between them, like, there's got to be like a good story here. Why are they trying to kill him? And like, I can't wait to see this. And if it devolves into like, we just hate each other, we're gonna swear to each other, but like, oh, that kind of a bummer.
I don't want to be unfair. The things I really like about the story, I cannot say.
For sure, for sure.
So that's stuff
fair.
is definitely there, and it's so frustrating sometimes on this podcast where it's like, I would love to go into it. I think it would give you a more balanced understanding of what I'm talking about, but I can't.
Yeah.
I don't want to ruin it for anybody.
Life is strange. I can't say.
Yeah, there's definitely cool stuff there. But the other thing is so much of the world building and character building is done through notes, and it's done through audio logs. And I think that those things, I'm not inherently against those things, but again, when it's like, okay, I go in this room, I click on this thing, okay, I got to read the, like, you just get burned out. You're just like, I just don't have it.
Sometimes there's too many.
Sometimes
Control had 1 million.
Oh, Control for sure.
Like, I even think about Control.
Too many.
Yes.
And it's, I felt
But
that way about
love
Control.
them all, but there's just too many.
Yeah, it can be well done, and I think a lot of them here have some entertainment value, but it's just like, it's tough, right? Because it's like, I try to think of it from their perspective, and it's clear that the way that this game is designed, right, around player freedom, about flow, they want to give you the choice, right? And if you want to ignore all that stuff, you can have a great time with Deathloop, and if you really want to dig into it, you can. And it's just like, yes, you're like, your heart is in the right place, but I just wish there was a better way, like a more natural way that could kind of give you all this delicious stuff without being like, okay, what's written on this piece of paper? You know? It's just...
I think of like Arkham Asylum, Ben. That like every time you'd find a audio recording, it would be one of the inmates. And there's just so few of them, but every time you found one, it would be such a treat.
Right.
Or like obviously Resident Evil, the original, every time you find a little document, it's like, oh.
Yeah, and there are times where very, very briefly, control will be taken away from you, and you will have kind of a cutscene with somebody, and they don't last very long, but they're kind of awesome. And it's like, I almost wish, like, I'd be okay with you there's Arcane, you've done it, you've delivered a beautiful sandbox, I love it. I think you could have like nudged into the cutscene storytelling stuff a little bit more and not taken away from the beautiful freedom and sandbox that you've done. But yeah,
sick.
That was a lot of Deathloop. Nice. I think it's a super cool game. I definitely have my gripes with it.
I really want to play it just so I can talk to you about it, Ben. It seems like a really fun game to talk about,
It is a super fun game to talk about. I
like Dishonored.
Yeah.
Like Deus Ex, just so fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And in a way, I kind of feel like I do about Returnal, where it's like, this is a cool, smart, demanding game. And Deathloop is very different than Returnal, but it's like, this is not just another AAA game, you know what I mean? Like, it's not...
Shout out, dude. Honestly, deserves a round of applause.
Yeah.
Honestly. This game took risks.
It did. It's a weird thing, and the ideas are leading it. You know what I mean? Like, it's definitely chasing after its own thing, and... It's like, no one could do this but Arcane.
Think about how hard out people are just on like the invasion mechanic sometimes. Like I don't want to deal with that. I know people don't like Nemesis in Resident Evil.
You want a perfect example of this?
I'm not doing it.
The fucking cards in Midnight Suns. It's like, no one's played this game, and all of you are convinced that the cards are bad. Just chill the fuck out for a second. And it's, honestly, that's why I'm glad they're handling the invasion mechanic in Deathloop the way that it is. It's like, trust me, give it a try. You'll probably have a really good time. Yeah.
I know now that you've said the game is like pretty easy, it's like, I retract everything I said earlier. It's like, I want to be stomped.
Yeah.
Like, please step on me, please.
Yeah. It's definitely weird where I don't think it's too easy at the beginning where you have like nothing, but you just hit this point where it's like, it's not like this gradual slope. It's like, oh, I'm just too powerful now. Like, I guess the only way I could see that not being true is if you were the most absolute reckless player, where you're like,
no, when you can stealth, I'm very stealthy. Actually, I'm very.
If you're like, I don't want to explore or pick up anything infuse, like, then maybe, but I think you'd have to try pretty hard. I think it would be a very unnatural way to play the game. Awesome. All right. Let's take a quick break. That's some pretty heavy game discussion. All three of those heavy hitters.
Heavy hitters.
I would say. 3
brand new heavy hitters. Look at that.
Yeah.
Finger on the pulse.
Yeah. Sometimes I just feel like an old man yelling at the cloud. But you go online sometimes. And sometimes it's easy to convince yourself that like everything sucks because all people are doing is complaining. And that's why it's so nice to do this show. And it's like, no, these games are sick. Like, there's a lot to play. There's a lot to play.
I'm leaving at the worst time.
No. Don't let it get to you.
Purposefully not bringing my Switch. 2 weeks disconnected from everything.
I couldn't do it. I have to bring my Switch.
No Switch.
But it's time for the sizzle. We've had a lot. Speaking of everything sucks, I have a what sucks the most question. What in 2021? It can be any medium. It doesn't have to be video games. What do you think is the worst or most annoying character that you've encountered this year?
In a video game, or
it can be anything.
Oh,
it can be anything.
Most annoying character. This is a tough question.
This is a question. I can upset you if you want to. We can start that because this is one popped in mind. So I just finished season 3 of Fear the Walking Dead.
Oh baby,
very invested.
yeah,
very much enjoying it.
Dude.
A lot of interesting things.
Yeah,
big ups on Alicia. Big ups on Nick.
Alicia.
Very good. And I've really turned around on her. I think she's gotten better as the season has gone on. But earlier on, my wife and I got visibly upset with Madison, where it's like, listen, I know you love your kids, but even in the context of that fact, what you're doing doesn't make any sense. Like there were decisions that she's made where it's like, you just need something to happen in the plot. It was like the worst kind of decisions.
Yes.
Where it's like, this isn't what this character would do. This is what a writer in a writer's room would do.
On
a bad day.
1,000,000,000%.
And so that shit got annoying. And it's not just her. There are other characters that you can apply that
off
to.
the rails from a lot, dude. You got to get through it.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes. It's like you're on a flight and sometimes with Fear the Walking Dead, it's like there's some turbulence. Yeah.
Oh,
definitely.
dude, I cannot wait to talk to you about some shit.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yes. We've been enjoying it.
Nice. Damn.
Did you guys come up with anything?
Annoying characters. I can't think of any, man.
I go through all this stuff watched recently because we talked a lot about like Fear Street. I was like, was there anyone from Fear Street? I just watched
there has to be.
I just watched like Cruella, and I was like, that was like above my expectations. So it's like I didn't.
Oh, I'm gonna hurt you, man.
Uh-oh.
I'm so sorry.
Hurt me more.
Oh, I'm gonna hurt you so hard.
No,
legit, my least favorite movie of the year is The Green Knight.
Really?
Yeah,
that's my favorite movie of the year.
I can't stand this movie.
Yeah,
it's so pretentious.
You know, that doesn't upset me because like I get it. I really do.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies where I walked away from it and was like, I got a lot out of that. But when anybody is like, I didn't like it, it was pretentious or whatever, I get it.
Yeah.
I do. I'm not like, what? I can't see that at all. I can totally see that.
Yeah. Like, I love Dev Patel. And I felt nothing in this movie. And it's like, I love art house movies.
Yeah.
I love movies. And it's just like this whole movie
is
just so ambiguous in like the... Oh, it's all open for interpretation. Okay, so nothing's right, so nothing's wrong. So it's just, oh my god,
I don't know if I have the space to get into it here because I really truly no antagonism whatsoever. Not upset. Like I said, I get it.
Yeah.
But I think we could have a conversation where you're like, oh,
you can probably change my mind. I'm sure.
Yeah.
But we talked about it on reaction shots, and it's like I don't know. I still came out of it just like.
Yeah, a lot of people feel that way about the movie. It's a very divisive movie.
For sure. gorgeous to look at. My God.
I think that's kind of what makes it interesting.
For sure.
I sometimes it's nice when people have strong emotions about something one way or another.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good. Everything. Yes. Things are not universal, you know. It's interesting, yeah. It's an interesting movie that I do not like. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Both of those things can be true.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
So him in that. I
Yeah,
was just like, oh my God.
There's a movie I think it was called Censor. Really fascinating premise for the movie where it's about this woman who her job is taking these like extremely violent movies and being like, okay, you want to be shown in theaters, you have to.
Was this a documentary?
No, it's not a documentary.
Oh,
it's a fictional movie, but it's talking about a real thing.
Got it.
Anyway, to quickly sum it up,
Yeah.
I was like, that premise is amazing. And then I watched it and I was like, I feel cold. Like, I respect what it's doing and I think it's very well thought out and I think it's doing cool things, but I don't feel anything.
Yeah.
Totally. So I get it.
Yeah.
You can have those movies.
Totally.
Right. Where like I have this weird like distant respect for it, but it's not. I wouldn't say that like I loved it. Yeah.
Totally. I know. I wish I could make a movie like The Green Knight. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean,
wow.
unquestionably,
respect.
Regardless of how you feel about the story, that movie is fucking beautiful.
Yeah. Like I despise it, yet I'm still in awe.
Yeah. It's a very slow movie. Anyway, enough about The Green Knight. Damiani.
Trying to pick a character from the live-action Mortal Kombat movie from this year.
Oh my God!
I'm having a hard time thinking which one I really hate.
Kano.
Kano was so bad.
What was the main character? Cole.
Cole.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
That's it.
I think Cole
That's
takes
the one
it
I
now.
hate the most.
Yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm just
my
gonna
God.
go Cole.
Do you remember when?
Most unnecessary character.
Do you remember when Goro was trapped in a garage? He like couldn't open a fucking fence.
No, you know how I was like, oh, The Green Knight, I get it. You just saying that, I'm like, I feel the gamer rage in me, man. I feel it.
Yep.
So good, Damiani. Such a good one. Holy
Jesus,
crap.
that takes the cake.
Yep.
That takes the cake.
Oh my God, that movie.
Oh no.
It's
Okay.
crazy
I
'cause
messed up my phone. That's how mad I was. Okay.
Cole is in the show Into the Badlands, and he's so cool in that. He's like good martial artist, like cool dude.
Oh, I don't have anything
Yeah,
against
but
the
he
actor,
was
but that
so-
character.
So bad.
Listen, the new Mortal Kombat movie didn't have to do much. It really didn't. And it didn't do that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
Just watch Ricky O instead.
This sizzle, this passionate sizzle, is brought to you by some wonderful sponsors. If you want to find out more, go to patreon.com/easyallies, where you can be shouted out on all of our various podcasts. We have quite a few. For this shout out, I want to do it a little bit differently. So take that rage that you have maybe towards the Green Knight or to Cole, and give me a cathartic shout out after I read these names. So, shout out to Elthanas, Greg TheDarkKnight Kettering, Caleb Togi Crawford, and Nick.
Shout out!
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to turn that down. Damiani, you have dug into a game that is very beloved to you and very beloved to me, and so I'm excited to talk to you about this new version. Because while I played through Final Fantasy 1 and dipped into Final Fantasy 2, I have not played the Final Fantasy 4 Pixel Remaster.
Yeah. This is the first one I've gotten into. I haven't played 1, 2, or 3 of the Pixel Remasters either. Just jumped into it. I just got to SIZZLE becoming a paladin. So it's literally as far as I've played to that moment.
Okay, so that moment. So we were talking about Symphonia and kind of that feeling of being a kid and like, whoa. Playing Final Fantasy 4 as a kid, the Cecil Paladin moment, I was like, this is the coolest shit ever.
Before Naruto
it's still
and
cool.
Sasuke.
Oh my God. And
the dialogue bubble.
Out.
It's like a true paladin would sheath his sword if you start attacking. But you're like, wait, I'm gonna die. Wait, you really do want to sit here and take it? It's like it's a kid mind blown. You're like, wait, what?
It is definitely like an all-time Final Fantasy moment for me. But yes,
I'm definitely finding myself hooked. I only intended to play it for just like a tiny bit, and now it's like, man, I'm just gonna go play the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna play the whole game.
Oh, I love that.
I can't resist.
When's the last time you went through it?
2 years ago on a stream, 2 or 3 years within the last 2-3 years, and it was the PSP version, which. Interesting enough is the version I'm most directly comparing this one to. I can't speak to translations. I'm like not a big enough expert to go between those different versions.
Yeah.
But I will say whether it's the smaller screen on the PSP, I do think it looks better on the PSP.
I think the PSP releases for a lot of those games, it is my favorite style. I don't think this looks bad.
No. Not necessarily it looks bad, but like I'm like just the character sprites look more detailed in the PSP version of Final Fantasy IV. Like I boot them up at the same time. It's like okay, even if I blew this up, like the level of detail on like Paladin SIZZLE in PSP version versus the Pixel Remaster, it's like I know what they're going for. They're going for more of the old school like Super Famicom, Super Nintendo look here, but I just like the PSP version. They're doing the filters with the effects like, oh, it's the misty cave or it's like a sandstorm area. Like they're both doing that thing, but even the environments are just more detailed in the PSP version. Like the antlion cavern, I was like simultaneously playing through those two parts and I'm like, yeah, this just looks better on the PSP. Now that being said, there are a lot of really cool changes that I like in the Pixel Remaster. First and foremost, the auto battle. You gotta learn the rules though. Like they'll literally just your characters will repeat the last action they did.
Right.
So if you do a manual action, but then like expect them just to auto attack, like I was wondering why they kept changing rows. But I was like, oh, I had one of the characters.
Sure
we were in a back attack and I screwed up and like they kept shifting rows I was like, why are you doing? Oh, that character's only activating row shift. I was like, oh my gosh.
I'm sure you, like I did, like knew that and then was auto battling and then kind of like went into a trance and then you're like, oh wait, no, I've wasted a bunch of MP that I didn't mean to waste.
Like when they do like a Asuna, it's like no one needed is like a cleanse, but like when you're doing it correctly, which is most of the time like it's called Octomammoth, but like the big like octopus battle fight in the waterway when you meet Tella, it's like I just had Rydia and Tella spam lightning and thunder, and I just had SIZZLE doing his normal attacks and then auto battle. Just like it's nice because that's the only like some of these battles don't have a lot of strategy to them, and you just want to get through them. And it's like I've already played this game. I don't need to see some of it play out. Some of the moments I do slow it down. It's like I'm going to play this manually. I like this part, but for some of the stuff, it's like nice to have that option. It doesn't.
It just strictly makes it.
And
better.
it didn't really exist in the previous versions. I will say the soundtrack. This version of the soundtrack is fantastic.
So I haven't heard it in 4, but the ones that I have played, oh my god, yes.
Yeah, like this is it. This is like the to me like the best new arrangement of any of the attempts they've done before.
That's some high praise.
Yeah,
it's if you are a Final Fantasy fan, you want to
It is really good that they did that. This is gonna blow your mind. Something so simple. You can move diagonally.
Yeah.
You don't just move left, right, up, down. You can move diagonally. Like when I started doing that, I was like, why is there?
I wasn't even thinking about that, but yes.
Like in the map, I'm like, dude, I'm going diagonal. What the heck? This changes everything. And I was like going through zones. I'm like, ooh, yeah, I can just go through there, save some time. It's
awesome.
One of my favorite additions, and it's like, oh, this is so smart, and it like streamlines it in a really cool way that I don't see other games do. Is you have a mini map, and these classic, 8-bit or 16-bit RPGs. They love to have these super like Byzantine dungeons that have so many fucking dead ends. And because you have random encounters, it just ends up being really annoying. But now on the mini-map, when you go into an area, you can see, like, there's a chest here, there's a chest here, there's a chest here. And it's like, you still have to put in the legwork of, like, going to those places. They don't have all that fucking wasted time as you did before, and that's really nice.
Yeah, I think, I guess it did mark chests. It was, like, marking entrances and exits when you got into an area, so, like, it would facilitate your traversal so you wouldn't be, like, aimlessly wandering. What's nice is it has, like, 3 sizes, but, like, it's high-quality mini-map. It looks like art. I mean, it's like the pixel art, but it's, like,
It's very legible.
Yeah, and it looks like something out of like a Lord of the Rings book, but like that like the what's it like? It's like gray tone or not gray tone.
I don't know if I would go that far.
No, I'm saying it wrong. I'm like
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's not that detailed, is what I meant. It looks like artwork, but it's not. It's the sprite work. It's weird. It looks good. It just that's the point. It looks really good no matter you blow it up to like the big size or you keep it tiny. But when you could switch views where you can go into like a more zoomed in view, and you could like just scout out the whole map that way, like the old school style. But it's so easy to bring up. It's not a dumb item anymore. It's like a press of a button. And it shows you like how many chests you've missed. It's like X of like 5 of 5. You got all 5 of the chests in this area. So like for completionists, it is tracking all that stuff. It's these little quality of life changes that I'm like, I just like this. This is nice, simple stuff. It's not radically altering the game, and appreciating it.
Especially because you guys have played it so many times. So this feels like good for replaying too. You know, auto battling on. You know.
Yeah. Well. I mean, I think that kind of stuff just makes these games more digestible across the board. But also, another thing, I'm assuming you're playing on PC.
Yeah, the Steam version, yeah.
It's just kind of nice having achievements for these old ass games.
Oh yeah, I see them pop up, and it's like, oh yeah, there's like achievements for this stuff. For 4, like I haven't really even been looking at that yet because in previous versions I've done everything, so I'm like assuming 100% this, I'm gonna get everything. Yeah. It's interesting what they've given achievements for, because like one of them is like once you slay 100 monsters, it's like beginner like warrior or something. It's what it's called, or complete 10% of like all monsters in your log, and like you get like a scholar title or something like that. So, and then each major story beat has its own achievement as well. So for those they're into it, it's just nice to have that functionality, because how many remasters that came out in the PS3 era of older games, that was like one of the big selling points, and now there are achievements for them.
Well,
totally.
I remember speaking to the positive points of achievements is playing through Final Fantasy 1 on Steam. I finished it and I was like, I almost have all of these. Like, if this wasn't there, I wouldn't even give this a second thought. But this is kind of making me want to go and just clean up that other stuff, which is cool.
So jolly.
Yeah, I will say it feels like it's. I mean, I know this game inside out, but this version does feel a bit on the easy side. I used to, even knowing what to do, I thought even bosses would took a little bit longer than before, even with like auto battle, like the Mist Dragon. I was like, I don't remember beating it that fast. I was like, you only changing the mist one time. It gave you the dialogue warning, and like 2 hits after it was dead. And like I was like, wait, what? So I was like, that was quick.
That's
and I'm leveling.
I don't remember the Mist Dragon being
and I feel like it was never difficult. It just I remember turning to Mist at least twice. I'm like, you didn't even get a second transformation, and I'm leveling up so quickly in that game. It feels like, but I do like how they very clearly in post-battle show EXP until next level, that little like mini window that pops up, because you can more clearly see the diminishing returns for people who like to grind, like Jones.
Yeah.
It's like you're not getting that much experience for this zone. Like move on to the next area. Like you're getting like peanuts here. Like and it's like you need like 5,000 experience. You're getting like 5 per fight. Like let's go.
I know it wasn't. Like it was super jovial, but the way that was phrased, it sounded like such an aggressive call out. Like you I got your number.
You grinder.
Yeah, I mean,
I like to grind. Maybe not as much as Jones, but
Jones is the most.
It's got auto battle and grinding, man. It's
we all love grinding, but it's like a religion for Jones.
I think he was playing Dragon Quest XI.
Oh.
And I think there was a point, if I remember correctly, there was a moment where like he had a question about something, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna hang around here and like get everybody next level. It was something like that, but it was just like, oh, like the stories are true. Like it's like that line from The Force Awakens.
It's all true.
It's true, all of it.
So good.
I would say I would recommend maybe the PSP version over this because of the value, because it includes the after years in that interquel thing.
I've never played those, and part of the reason I never played them because I remember playing through the PSP version. I had a conversation with you about it, and you're like, "No, they're bad."
Yes, they're not very good.
Yeah,
but the thing is, the original cost of the PSP version and how much you got versus the price of these pixel remasters.
Sure,
so
I see what you're saying.
But the price for this, because the After Years is also on Steam for like $15.99, and I know this is on sale, but normally it's like $17.99 for this.
Yeah.
So 18 plus 16, it's like $34. Like you're already approaching. I think the PSP version was like $34.99, $39.99, but that also included a few more extra content in there. I don't know all the extra bonuses because I didn't go into the extra mode. It has like a music player and some other stuff, but like you're getting kind of like close, and like it's an all-in-one bundle, and I think. Yeah, it just depends on what you really value, but this is a really good version. Like I'm like, even the font, the OG font, it's small, but like it wasn't driving me insane on Steam. I did install the Mystic Quest mod, and like the text feels like it fits the style a little bit better. But like that's the thing, the beauty of it. It's on Steam. You can like mod the crap out of this now if you really want to.
Yes.
So it's just, so maybe I am saying like, you know, despite its price tag, it is probably like the version I would recommend people play, because I imagine the PSP version's A, expensive now because of the used game market, and B, like going to track down a PSP if you don't have one, like that's a whole other nightmare.
Is it 4 or 6 that's on SNES Classic?
Neither.
Chrono Trigger?
Chrono Trigger?
Chrono Trigger isn't on SNES.
I'm sorry, I have a special version.
The little...
I think it's
So I don't remember.
Wait,
I think it's 6.
Okay, sorry, I was thinking of Switch Online. You're thinking of...
SNES
The
Classic.
SNES Mini, sorry.
I think it's 6.
6, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's one of them.
Sorry.
I think it's 6.
Yeah, it is. Sorry.
Sorry, I just have all of us. I don't remember.
Random tangent about PC gaming. This is so weird. I have these weird outbursts all the time. For some reason, I really wanted to fucking play Manhunt 1.
Hell yeah.
I just wanted to play I don't know why I wanted to play Manhunt.
Remaster, fucking Manhunt, Bully, GTA 4,
And
like Y5 for the 9th time.
And I knew that I had the PS4 version, and I was like, oh, cool. So I put it on my PS5 to download it. And I got this message that I have not yet seen on my PS5, and it's like, hey, this game is going to be all fucked up on your PS5. Like, you could play it, but it's going to be all messed up. So I played it, and, like, the text was, like, flickering. And, like, the light textures and stuff were all weird. And so I look on Steam, and they're like, hey, the PC version of this isn't good. But I got the Steam version, you can just click, and you can be like, okay, are there any fixes for this? And they're like, here's Manhunt Definitive Edition. And it's still not perfect, but it was just like, that is something I appreciate about PC games so much, is it's like, people will just fix it, and just the flexibility, and like you're saying, you're just replacing the font. It's like why I value this so much. Right? Like, because I don't have my PS4 anymore.
Yeah.
So
shit.
Yeah.
Dude, my plastic bag kill.
My hope is that people. Oh gosh.
Dude, the fucking bat kill, the fully charged bat kill, where you like get them on their knees, and then you take the bat and you just smash off their head, and it just splats on the wall.
I think I remember actually liking the like easier bat kill, because it was more of just like a
the first one. The first one's very funny because it's just like poop, poop, and they're gone. Yeah, that game.
That game's insane.
That game is.
Oh man.
And then you're like, because you're making a fucking snuff film, and the director's like, oh yeah, I like that. It's a messed up game. Yeah, anyway. Sorry, Damiani. I'm getting us derailed from Final Fantasy IV.
Oh, the last thing I want to say is, like, with the mod thing and being on PC, is that people have gone out there and made, like, different balanced versions of the games to be, like, a little bit more challenging, but also fair. Yeah. So, like, looking forward to those, you know, being applied to this game, hopefully, at some point.
Well, you were saying you recommend the PSP version, and while I think you make a strong argument for it, just the fast-forwarded nature in the auto battle, it's like once you experience that, I think it would be hard to go back.
Yeah, like I think it just comes down to like convenience.
Yes,
like if you don't have the PSP and the Final Fantasy IV collection is not cheap anymore, then obviously go with the Steam version. I think you'll be satisfied with either version. I think I guess maybe at some point the Steam version can be made the definitive version, and it probably is the best chance. So I maybe would like lean towards just go with the Pixel remaster, because of all the different like updates it's going to get, you know, over time. And I forgot the last. Oh yeah, the last thing. The only thing I wish would be in there, and I'm sure it could be modded and easy, is a lot of these Square Enix classic Final Fantasy re-releases have been give you like God mode, or like the Final Fantasy VII. Like they give you like basically cheats, the optional cheats if you just want to like plow through it. Or there's nothing. I mean,
Final Fantasy IX. The one thing wrong with that game is fights are way too slow. Modern re-releases, you speed that shit up. Perfect.
FF12.
Perfect game.
Speed it up. Yeah, that's sick.
Hubert, there is no game on this list that I wish I had played. I guess I could have played instead of fucking Manhunt. But I really want to, and I think part of the reason is I kind of want to just play it all at once. But I am so excited about Tormented Souls.
Tormented Souls, yeah.
Tell me about it.
Sick ass game. This is classic survival horror in the vein of the, original Resident Evils like 1, 2, 3, Code Veronica, and Silent Hill.
That,
some of the best games ever made.
that's the most arousing thing you've ever said.
Yeah, it's fixed cameras, and it's Code Veronica style. The camera will like track you kind of as you're going. And
Code Veronica doesn't get enough love. I just need to throw that out there.
Yes,
underappreciated game.
Absolutely.
Sorry, keep going.
Remaster that sucker or remake it. I mean, I think one day. I think it'll come. But Tormented Souls is classic survival horror, and you play as this girl, and you are summoned to a mansion. When you get there, very beginning of the game, no spoilers. You get to the mansion, somebody knocks you out. And you wake up in a bathtub with your eyeball missing. Yeah.
I think a Minority Report.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very beginning of the game. That's not a spoiler. There's literally you haven't even moved yet, and all that happens.
Sure.
So then you have to figure out what the hell is going on, and the vibes of this game. What I can compare it to is like how Resident Evil is like bioweapons and like evil corporations.
Oh, do
stuff.
I?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is like religious horror. So there's like a religious kind of...
Well, because Silent Hill, very culty, a lot of the games.
Yeah, very culty. More in line with that style.
Okay.
Religious, there's like a priest NPC that you kind of bump into and, a smashed crosses everywhere. Not too much religion, but definitely the theme. And this game just is hardcore, man. It's hardcore like those older Resident Evils. You have to find tape recorders to save your game. It's an expendable resource. Actually, really, really cool.
I don't think I can get any more erect.
Yo, this is really cool. Story-driven saves. You save on the tape recorder, and she'll like talk about her feelings and like what's going on in the moment. Really
Trying
cool.
to think, there's a game that. I mean, there's probably multiple games that do it, but yeah. Anyway, keep going.
So really cool, and just item management. Your main weapon is a nail gun, and
Manhunt.
Yeah, man. You got your nail gun. Really want to hype up the shotgun. Very unique.
Can you do the Resident Evil, the best thing?
The headshot?
Yeah, where you tilt.
No.
Oh.
No. So the gore actually is a bit lacking. This is a slightly lower budget. It's only this is a $40 game. When I beat it, going over the credits, I was trying to count the people involved, and it really felt like 20, 30 people. A lot of the names were pulling triple, quadruple duty.
Yeah.
So smaller effort.
An act of love.
Yeah. And the shotgun is so cool because it's 2 pieces of pipe, and you can only have 1 shell at a time. So when you shoot it to reload, it's so fucking sick. She like rips it apart, and a shell will eject, and then she'll like slam in a new one, and then like put the pipe back together. It's so cool. It's cool every time. And then you have like a crowbar, Silent Hill style, just bashing. It was really funny because Isla's been playing it as well, and she was watching some of my footage from my episode that I did, and she was like, "You can use the crowbar as a weapon? I thought it was just an item." She's like, "I didn't even think of that," because you can like bash.
I'm calling Isla's Silent Hill credentials into question.
I was like, "Yo, Silent Hill style." She was like, "Oh my god, I didn't even realize."
And item combination stuff?
Item combinations.
Okay.
So,
or I guess what I mean is just survival. Like, come on, of course the crowbar is a weapon.
Yeah.
That's all I'm trying to say. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So, there are some criticisms. Some of these puzzles are like absurd, to me at least. I was like, how would you...
I mean, some Silent Hill puzzles are pretty absurd.
Yeah, but in Silent Hill, you can like lower the puzzle difficulty.
Yes.
Not here. Like, I had sorry, I had to look up like 1 or 2 puzzles.
That's
I was
fine.
like, yeah, I was like, I'm just full on stuck. It's that hard. The challenging game, really challenging game. So some of the puzzles are just a bit confusing. Kind of the map layout, like the atmosphere is really good music. When you go to a save room, there's a nice little save jingle, you know, that's essential. You can use, I appreciated, you can use tank controls on the D-pad.
Yeah.
So you can use your analog to like run around, but if you want to tank it, you can use the D-pad, which I just really appreciated it.
Yeah.
When you
is there a quick turn?
Yes.
Good.
And when you pick up, or there's like a dodge back. You can like push circle.
Oh, I mean like a 180.
I think if you use just the stick, if you just hold back.
Okay.
You'll pick up like the tutorial thing, and it's like the controls, and it was a picture of a tank. It's like the D-pad. Right. So like, there's so much love.
I love how specifically they're tapping into this vein.
Yes.
Yeah.
Straight into it.
Yeah.
And then you were just talking, like, dude, like earlier, we're talking about just Tales, right?
Yeah.
Tales of Symphonia, and just being like, oh, you know, and just it being quaint, like the idea of that. It's like, this game's on PS5 and it looks awesome. You know, this is like an old relic style of a game, but modern with like modern sensibilities, just looks really good. So just on like that basic level, I appreciate it. You know, really cool lighting. The enemies are creepy. There's not a ton of variety. They're pretty good. There's like freakos that have no legs that kind of like run at you. There's freakos like connected to IV machines on a pole.
I'm just gonna call them freakos now.
Yeah. There's some freakos. The gore is just okay. I thought, you know, definitely not Resident Evil levels, obviously, of course. But yeah, just kind of the puzzles are a little tough, and kind of going around the environments too can be pretty confusing, and the map doesn't do it any favors. So it's really easy to get lost in this game, really easy to get confused and stuck, which may turn a lot of people off. I know, speaking of Jones, he was talking about how he loves momentum in games, and a lot of that is just not getting stuck, like continuing to progress in a game. And there were many times in this when I just got hard stuck, like I don't know what to do, I don't know where to go. So old school, hardcore. I know you love that, dude. This game pushes back. It pushes back hard.
Something that I actually think Silent Hill to a lesser degree, but Resident Evil does so spectacularly, and what really facilitates its gameplay is how good the map is.
Yeah.
And how satisfying it is to have a very intricate place like the Spencer Mansion, but feel like you can look at a map and be like, oh, that's what that is, or oh, I need to get in there, or I haven't done something, or just the way that it communicates. I think that's so important. So does it take any cues from either of those series? Where like does it mark like locked doors or like places that you've explored? Or
Isla actually filled me in on something. There's the map you have in your inventory, and then sometimes when you get to an area, there's a map on the wall that you can't take. But when you use the one on the wall, it'll tell you exactly where you are. The one you hold doesn't. So you really have to know like the layout and everything, and it's just really confusing. So yeah, it doesn't hold your hand at all. And then one other major criticism too is like some puzzles where you know exactly what to do, but you just can't do it.
That is one of my least favorite things in video games.
Yes, Ben. Yes. I gotta call it out.
Yeah.
There's a thing where it's like you put a dial into a thing, and the dial has 4 separate dials on the back that you need to turn to line up. And it's like, okay, I know I just need to line them up. And it was like freaking impossible, dude. Because you had to keep like examining your item, like flipping it around. It's like really confusing. It's like hard to kind of flip it around and get it to the right area. But then it's like, okay, but is it turning this way because I put it like this, or is it accounting for that? It was a nightmare. And then there was another one later on where you had to like turn knobs to get gas into a canister. And it's like, I know exactly what to do, but it's just like flipping all these knobs, and it's just like, dude, I just gotta get lucky on this. So there's some of that, a little bit of rough around the edges, I'd say.
Yeah, and
the puzzles.
I think you have to. with what you were saying, you know, people doing double duty, this like clearly these people are just survival horror nerds in the same way that we're survival horror nerds, and so I feel this kinship with them.
Yeah,
but in a way, it's almost like a double-edged sword, because I have not played the game yet, but I installed it on PC and I booted up and I saw this game contains scenes of explicit violence and gore, and I was like, oh, that's so good. That's such a good touch, and in a way, it almost makes me scared because they're referencing these particular games that are like my absolute, some of my absolute like top shelf, some of the best gaming experiences I have ever had.
Yeah. That
like because they're referencing it so explicitly, I can't help but go into it with those experiences. Even something like The Medium, right, which like is clearly inspired by Silent Hill, wasn't referential to that point, right? And so it was easier for me to kind of separate my experience with The Medium to other things. And so that's as excited as I am to play Tormented Souls, and I absolutely will play it. I am a little bit nervous because of that connection. Like I won't be able to separate it from some of the best of the best.
Yeah, that's fair. I kind of love that though. I love swimming in 7s because then it makes the 10s that much better, you know. Swimming through it all, and it's like, okay, this is a great effort, this is a great game, but it's not Resident Evil.
No. You bring up a great point. You really do. And I agree with what you're saying. My only counter to that is it is easier to swallow the 7s if I was getting 10 out of 10 fixed camera tank control survivor horror, but that doesn't really happen.
For this it was more of just like I'm putting up with a little bit of jank and a little bit of like who the hell knows what's going on with these puzzles just because I'm starving.
Oh, yeah.
You know? I'm starving for this.
Exactly. Yes.
It's like,
great point.
Yeah, it's like Capcom. It's like give us one survival horror or one fixed camera Resident Evil, you know? It's like just throw us a bone, give us a throwback. Yeah. It's like there's that rumored Switch one, you know, for so long, Outrage or whatever, and it's like, dude,
I've never heard of this.
It's the rumored Switch timed exclusive Resident Evil game.
What a title. Outrage. Resident That's like so not threatening.
Because they were like,
I am outraged.
Yeah, it was like maybe going to be Revelations 3, but then it ended up being Village. It's all just rumors and hearsay, but yeah, just a somehow underserved genre of game, a fixed camera survival horror game.
Right.
That is competent with good atmosphere, good item management, and mostly solid all the way around. I was happy that I played through it. I'd like to see what you think about some of those puzzles, Ben.
Yeah, I'm really... Puzzles to me are interesting because sometimes I feel like I can hit them and it's like, that was a breeze. And then other times, you know, I guess that's how everybody probably experiences puzzles. But I think for a game like this, even more so than usual, length is essential.
Yeah.
Really is.
Under 10 hours.
Okay, because I feel like when you're trying to build suspense and atmosphere and a narrative, it has to be long enough to really let that to sit in it, but it can't be so long that it kind of peters out as well. Yeah, it
was like I think 8 or so hours it took me to finish.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah. And they have a good ramp up, you know. Some later stuff is really cool. Some cool environments, you know, some decent enemy variety. It's cool. It's a cool game.
I think tonight.
It's cool.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna crack that seal.
Hell yeah. Hey, October's right around the corner. You know, you could wait still even a little bit.
You make a strong case.
It's coming around. Like I feel like we should stream this for Halloween at least a little bit.
Yeah,
you know, like the first hour or so.
I think
we should definitely throw it
in.
Temper your expectations, though. Temper them, you know?
No, I think that's why I'm more excited. Is I think you have like a fine blade. I think now I'm finally in the right headspace for it. Yeah.
Got some problems, but really cool. And a cool main character. I'm ready for some cosplayers to do the main character. She looks really cool.
I mean, honestly, so important in survival horror. Part, like straight up, part of the reason Silent Hill Resident Evil is so good is because of the characters that you play as, without a doubt. What I am not that into.
Oh no.
is the Call of Duty Vanguard.
Oh, no.
I dipped into the beta. I've just been, for some reason, every like 3 years, I get like a strong hankering for Call of Duty.
Hell yeah. I love when you come around to it every time. I'm like, yes.
It doesn't happen every year, but every once in a while I'm like,
we'll play from November to January, Ben. Let's do it.
Well,
shit. Lay it on me. Because I played the one before this. I played one match of the new mode, and you did too.
I actually have not played the new mode in Cold War yet.
In Cold War? No, in Vanguard.
Oh, in Vanguard. Okay, well, hold on.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Setup.
Yes.
So I played the Champion Hill Alpha.
Yes.
And I liked it a lot.
Yes.
I was like, this is a cool mode.
Me too. I really liked that mode.
Yes. It feels like it's taking good things from Call of Duty. It kind of has some flavor from Battle Royale.
A little bit of Counter-Strike in there.
It's not like mind-blowing, but I was like, this is a cool new thing.
Yeah.
That's what got me hyped on Vanguard. I liked that enough that I was hopeful. And they're making some, what I thought were interesting changes. They're like destruction in Call of Duty. That's going to be really important in Vanguard. We're going to have it so you can really control your player size, so you can go into these maps and these modes where you can have really tight tactical 6v6. You can have more chaotic 12v12. And I was like, on paper, all of this sounds great. So I went into the beta excited. And I had been revisiting other Call of Duties, having a great time. I really like a lot of what Cold War is doing. I feel very strongly about that game.
Hell yeah.
So I went into Vanguard with totally open mind, excited, ready to enjoy
Ready to crack some dew.
Yeah, and I have like either complaints or apathy. like I can't there's so
Battlefield's year.
I mean,
you can do it.
Removing Champion Hill from the equation, which I do like. I have like this laundry list of complaints or just things that like don't matter or actively like get in the way. So a lot of people are talking about this, and it's absolutely true. Visibility is just a nightmare, and it was a nightmare for myself. And then I watched another player play it, and it was the same thing for him, where it's like you just run into situations where you just, because of the way the characters are dressed, like everybody just kind of blends into like this like tan green color. You just like you run into moments where you're like, oh that's a teammate, or oh that's an enemy. And like with the frantic nature of Call of Duty, that just can't happen. It's just annoying, and it just gets in the way of what you're trying to do, which is make decisions in a microsecond. And you need visibility to be good enough that allows you to make those decisions. And you can't. It's bad. It's really bad. And on top of that, I want to play with headphones. I want to have as much awareness as I can. It's so immersive. It's cool being able to be like, oh, I can't see that person, but I know they're right around that corner, that tension. The sound mixing in this game is, in my opinion, definitely worse than Cold War, where I feel like
Modern Warfare was a step up for the entire franchise.
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy that they're using the Modern Warfare engine, because I think it's remarkable. I was telling you, I was playing Modern Warfare on PC, and I'm like, fuck it, this game is multiple years old.
Yeah.
Yes, very, very good. But like gunfire and footsteps were in a way where it just was like, it's not that it was impossible, I guess, to discern location, but it was muddled in a way that I felt like this is definitely a step down. That was my gut reaction.
Yeah. And I think we talked about it. In Warzone, they had to either change or remove a skin because it was OP. There was a Warzone skin that was like blending in, and it was just like, yo, this is a better skin. Like, there's no reason to use any other skin because they're blending into the environment.
Right.
And they had to come and change it.
Yes.
So it's like weird.
Imagine that's the default.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's really bad. And so destruction, right? That's a big thing that they're hyping up with Vanguard. Does not fucking matter at all. I can't even like really pretend like it matters. Like, yes, I guess you can like sit down and think about it, where it's like, oh, okay, that person was camping and I could like destroy this wall to get to them. But outside of like you really sitting down and thinking about it, practically in a match, it just has not mattered for me. It's like, this tiny square or this door, you can break it, but it doesn't have any substantial impact. Whereas like I've also been playing Battlefield 5 recently, and you like have moments where you're like,
Tactics.
oh, the building that I was in is gone. This matters, right? And it's just it's cinematic, it's impactful, it's cool, it's exciting. It feels like in Vanguard that you're just like popping bubble wrap. It's just like so nothing. It just it's not cool. It's not like you don't have those stories, right, where you're like, dude, I thought of a way to like destroy this environment to get, like practically non-existent.
Yeah.
Like again, I guess maybe if you really think about it, sure, but not in a way that not in a dynamic, natural, cinematic way that you would expect when you say like we're really amping up the destruction.
Yeah.
No, doesn't matter. Also, so again, I was
So
like,
can you say there's a brick wall? Can you?
no, it's like very specific spots. It's
Okay.
like, oh, this wooden wall, this one you can break down.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah,
Got
it's
it.
not like
Got it.
this.
There's not like
map
a
is
brick
your
wall that you can like destroy.
It's not like it's like again, it's like very
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 specific moments.
very small specific things.
Got
At
it.
least in my experience, maybe there's something I'm missing, but again, if you're like amping up destruction, you would want it to be like immediately obvious in a
Yeah.
way that is impactful. I feel like the other thing is like again, I was talking about like, oh, it's cool that you can kind of like tailor the number of players and maybe like
I loved that idea
yes,
on paper.
a paper, great idea.
Great idea.
But so in the beta, you don't have control over like it's like, oh, okay, you have a lot less control, I guess, in terms of what you can play and how you play it. And they did give you Blitz later on, but what I'm trying to say, the ultimate point is when I was doing quick play, you were limited. It was like, okay, it's always going to be 6v6. And there's this one map in the city that's gigantic. There's no reason to ever play 6v6. There's not enough people to fill this map. This is stupid. You would never, this is not a good way. You don't ever want to do team deathmatch on this map because people are just going to sit in the corner. No one's ever going to find each other and the timer's going to end. You don't, if possible, you want a game to end via score because that's more interesting than just sitting. It's just stupid. It's like you would never do this way. It's so dumb. This is not a 6v6 map. Why is this even an option? And so it's like, well, if you could change the map, right? If it could be more dynamic, it would make it smaller and more
like
interesting.
Battlefield does.
So
Yes.
it's like there are ways to do this,
Yeah.
but just being like, here's this giant map, you can do 6 people on it if you want. It's like I'm never going to do that. That's a waste. That's a fucking waste. So some good things, I guess. I'm glad that they have gone back. So in Cold War, it's score streaks, right?
yeah. Yeah.
I get why they do score streaks, and
I
I
like
think they
it.
can be fun.
I need it.
Vanguard
I'm
goes
bad.
back to
Kill streaks? Shit.
and I was like, actually, I think this is a smarter change
Okay.
because for 2 reasons. One, with score streaks, I feel like you're like, yeah, I'm gonna get the stuff and I'll pop it off during a match eventually, and it kind of neuters the excitement of the thing,
Sure.
right? And so some of these things that you're doing, right, they're supposed to be a big deal. It's like I'm calling in this giant machine. You know, it should be exciting. When it's inevitable, it's less exciting. The other negative consequence that it has is in a game. So if we rate games in terms of chaos, I would say Call of Duty is at the apex.
Yes.
And has only gotten pretty much more chaotic over time. So when you have guaranteed kill streaks, it just makes it messy in a way that I don't think is like very fun. I don't think it adds to it. Like, yes, it's nice when you're like, oh, okay, I never get to pop off this thing, and so I do. There is some value there, but in the beta for Vanguard, I was like, actually, I'm happy that they're doing kill streaks because one of the kill streaks is dogs, and if you've played World at War, you know that can be a nightmare. And so it's nice where it's like, okay, this almost never happens. Like a lot of people aren't getting to that point, so it just makes it more valuable. I like that. I think that's a good change. The other thing is that Modern Warfare engine is amazing.
Yeah.
It looks really nice.
One of my favorite shotguns of all time, dude.
Yeah.
Modern Warfare Shoddy. Just the sights, the sounds of it. Like, that single-handedly got me invested for months. But you're saying the sound isn't as good now.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think I've spent enough time with it to be like definitively the sound is trash, at least in terms of like gunfire and that sort of thing. So, you know, again, these are beta impressions. This is not like this isn't like review level quality of time in a thing. And so I can't say definitively, but just gut reaction to a lot of the stuff. There's a beach map that I really do like. I think it's kind of a good balance. It's like what I want a Call of Duty map to be, where you are constantly interacting with players and it's condensed enough that there's action always happening, but there are routes you can take where you're like, I'm going to outthink these guys, and you do have those moments. That, to me, is peak Call of Duty, whereas the hotel map is just a fucking nightmare, and it's just like basically like an open space where people are firing at each other all the time, and it doesn't feel like there's a modicum of strategy at all, which can be fun sometimes.
Totally.
And
it's why I play Call of Duty, actually.
Sure, yeah, I get that. I think it's a valid argument. Then you have the giant city map where it's just like, oh, this is just where people are going to hang out in corners.
Yeah,
So,
finish it. Go ahead.
Again, you know, there's more nuance to this than necessarily what I'm describing. It does change on mode, right? So I think that city map is a lot more interesting when you're playing domination and people have to go to those points and interact a little bit more. And so there's a lot of variables that can change things up.
Yeah.
So it's not as cut and dry as I'm saying.
How is the pace compared to Cold War? Like, this is World War II, right? So is it just a little...
Yeah.
Are you moving kind of similar?
No, it's super fast.
Yeah.
It's super
As
fast.
usual, yeah.
It's super fast. It's, you know, it's not...
Running and gunning.
It's not like some of the future ones where it's like you're not doing any of that stuff.
Yeah, of
but,
course.
I mean, like, boy, you sure do slide. So, like, you know, imagine a lot of encounters where you're both sliding at each other and fighting. So, and I don't even say that as like a bad thing. I think, kind of to your point, there is a freneticness to Call of Duty that is kind of essential to what it is. And I think in comparison to the other World War II game that Sledgehammer did, it's been a while since I've played World War II.
Yeah.
But I think it is more chaotic and frenetic and fast than I remember World War II being. Yeah. So that will either be a positive or negative thing for you. And to wrap it all up, I still, in spite of all my complaints, I still think I'm going to have a good time with Vanguard. I still think I'm going to play it and I'm going to enjoy it, but only because like Call of Duty is such a well-worn thing at this point.
It's crazy.
That there's like there's like some sort of baseline of enjoyment that you can get out of it
every year.
But what I'm frustrated by is like my experience with this was like the changes that you're making are not great, and it's just to sum it all up, it's just like spinning its wheels in dramatic fashion. People say it as a out of hand criticism, but from my perspective, having played it, it cannot be summed up more perfectly than it sure is another Call of Duty.
Yeah. I am always so torn. You know, this is a franchise I show up to every year expecting exactly what I get. Mm-hmm. And that's always why I've loved Battlefield more, is not only the tactics, but when you release something every year, it's just not as special. I'm going through that with Marvel right now. It's just incessant. Like, I can't remember the last week we had where Marvel something wasn't announced or discussed, and it's just like diminishing returns. And it's like, on one hand, like, dude, Battlefield's coming out this year. It's an event. It's special. Oh my God, yes. On the other hand, the warm blanket, the comfort, the familiarity, the zeitgeist of just like jumping in, embracing the chaos, sliding around, shooting some people for a month is exactly what you sign up for. So it's like I'm always torn, but I usually, you know, just hop in for a month or two and have fun and then move on.
Well, I think for a long time, Call of Duty has been more than the sum of its parts, where its greatest asset is it has Champion Hill, it has zombies, it has a campaign, which Battlefield does not have.
Yeah.
And the last Sledgehammer campaign, World War II, I thought was pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bring it to Hall of Greats, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed playing through it, and I'm probably going to enjoy playing through this. Yeah. And so there are many aspects of it, and while I could probably be very critical of each of those individual aspects, I am kind of interested in digesting the thing as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. So we'll see how that is. But
they could do more. They could take a risk, you know? It's like, how safe
Well, and
How
you
safe
see,
has this billion-dollar
You see
enterprise
glimpses of
been? Yeah.
you see really good ideas. Like recently, I just played through the Cold War campaign, and they could have done a lot more with it. But
some of
there
the
are, like,
spy stuff.
Yeah, there are like
Yeah.
glimpses of like open-ended level design and
Totally.
optional things, and like solving puzzles to try to get leads and killing a person.
That
You're like,
stuff was cool.
yeah, and they actually don't go that hard on any one aspect of it, but you're like, this is kind of cool, and you see that potential. You see, like, if somehow if you were to combine all these little bits, you could maybe have like another Call of Duty 4 or another Modern Warfare 2 on your hands.
Yeah. I guess Warzone was that, I guess. I keep forgetting about that. You know, Warzone was copying Battle Royale, but it was doing their own thing, and they have made it 100% their own thing.
Fucking gigantic.
For sure.
Yeah.
But some of the, it feels like I remember being pretty bummed because Modern Warfare, I was so addicted to the multiplayer. I hadn't been that addicted to the multiplayer in quite a while, but all the love was going to Warzone. Everyone was just Warzone. It was like, well, what about like your normal 6v6, 12v12 deathmatch over here? It's like they just kind of...
Yeah, and it's weird for me because I've played Warzone, and I think it's cool. I'm just not a Battle Royale guy. I'm just not. And I have enjoyed... Apex is my favorite one. I feel like I've spent significant time in Battle Royales, but I just prefer more traditional multiplayer, zombies, single-player campaigns, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But maybe I just need to spend more time with it. Maybe I'll turn around. Because, like, I don't know. There was a period of time where I didn't touch Call of Duty campaigns, and I've been playing them now, and I'm like, no, I kind of enjoy this just because it's so rare.
Yeah.
I don't know. When Call of Duty 4 came out, again, we're talking about like Tales of Symphonia and the Paladin moment. I was with Call of Duty 4 and Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops 1, really. I was obsessed.
Yeah.
And it was like,
you're not alone.
Yeah, right, obviously. But it was just so, it was truly taking everything that had been done before, really throwing it in the trash and creating a new standard that we're still following to this day.
Fucking Call of Duty original, dude. Aim down sights. Like,
that
idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just these innovations that have been lacking in the franchise because it's so familiar, because it's such a machine. And, you know, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
No.
They're worried about alienating, you know, the professionals or the people that want the familiarity. But at the same time, it's like,
that's exactly what it is. It is not. It really, truly feels like not how can we make this better. It is how can we keep this going.
Yeah, Ben. Great call.
And it'll keep going.
It's gonna keep going. It's too big to fail.
It is truly too big to fail.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
That's what Champion Hill kind of had me excited because it was like pulling all this shit from everywhere, and it's like, oh, this feels kind of new, but that's familiar.
It's
familiar,
that feeling.
New but familiar.
It's like it's putting enough tank in the gas to make the trip, but it is not. That's it. That's all it's gonna do. This, you know where the stopping point for this game is. Like it'll be a great month.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great month.
It's gonna be a great month.
Yeah. So funny.
Oh my god. This has been a long... Sorry, Damiani, you sounded like you were going to say something, and we got too wrapped up in our...
No, really. Like
franticness.
I was going to say, like, it was like always like two constants. It's like Pokemon and Call of Duty. They do the same thing, but like...
Minor variations.
Axing the campaign was like the big thing for Call of Duty with like going with, you know, multiplayer centric, and like we're going to do that. But it's like, will Call of Duty ever have that moment where like Pokemon Legends Arceus, where it's like, oh my god, they're doing something different for once, like, but like that people are seeing that as like a spin-off, or it'll be its own thing while the traditional stuff keeps happening. Well, would Call of Duty ever do something like that if they want to take that big risk game and make it cool. Like, you know, like they seem to have the money and the resources to just do everything if they really wanted to. It's like,
I feel
maybe
like
that's how they do it.
Wouldn't want multiple multiplayer communities competing against each other, you know?
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, I think it might be different to Call of Duty because it has to have that multiplayer component. Whereas, let's say it was like not the most, you know, fair analogy.
But then at the same time, like there's people that still play Modern Warfare and Black Ops, and you know people are playing all the multiplayers at all times. So it's like 1 year they just need to go buck wild and turn it up on its head.
It would be more interesting if it was terrible than if
this whole Grand Theft Auto.
Right now, I could sit there and I could probably play it for 8 hours, and like I would feel nothing, but I wouldn't be mad.
It's this whole Grand Theft Auto 5 thing has I've been thinking about, and it's just like there's too much money on the table.
Make another
GTA 5 is too GTA Online prints
the
money.
battle pass has ruined us.
wild.
Man,
It's wild.
Oh, I do want to say though, shout out. It's almost worth checking into Call of Duty every year because the mic situation is a theater in and of itself. There is no multiplayer game I play where like any game at any moment is there a theater from just mic chatter on its own. I will hear sounds and situations. There was a guy who just had his mic on. He was listening to a fucking documentary about Mars. I just heard him listening. When he's like, well, when we settle on Mars, it's like, what are you doing? Where are you? These people, it's so funny.
It's so good.
Every time.
It's so good.
And like, yes, of course you mute them, but for those few seconds, you don't know what you're gonna hear. It could be anything, and it's like every match.
Every match. Every
It's
lobby.
so
Every
funny.
lobby.
And like the documentary about Mars thing sounds like something I'm making up. I swear to God.
But then you'll hear like you'll be in a lobby and you'll hear like friends talking to each other publicly, and it's like, why are you not in like your own? You're just having like some full on. I love it.
It's the Guardian of
Wild.
Insanity. It's so funny. Like, and you will hear like people screaming or raging in other games, but Call of Duty is that extra layer.
Yeah.
Like, it could be anything. Yeah. One of these times, I'm going to boot it up and, like, I'm going to hear someone getting arrested.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
It's crazy.
Oh, it's so funny.
It's the Wild West.
This has been a long episode. So let's go into the HOTTAKE. So, Hubert, today you graced me with the news. You were the one who revealed it to me that Darkest Dungeon 2, a game that we are very excited for, is coming out at the end of October. And I was like, I was like, this made my day, and it truly did.
Yeah,
truly did. And
listen to this guy. What did you do?
I was like, oh man, like
First, he posted a YouTube video of like how to.
I reinstalled Darkest Dungeon and played it for like 2 hours. Because I have never finished the Darkest Dungeon. I need to do that. Because I love that game so much.
I might have wiped on stream too. It might be archived. It's fucking impossible.
Speaking of, I installed Darkest Dungeon, ran into the collector like on my second map, and party wiped. And I was like, yep, welcome back. Anyway.
Yeah. It's so impossible.
I was thinking about it, and I was like, I really trust this studio. I think Darkest Dungeon is such a high-quality game. I've gotten so much enjoyment out of it. I think it is so brilliant on so many levels and really holds up to pretty intense scrutiny that I cannot wait for Darkest Dungeon 2, and I am very confident that it is extremely likely to be one of my favorite games of the year. And then I was like, because it qualifies it from meaningful conversation end of the year.
For this...
Should the early access label disqualify it automatically? Because maybe we need a more rigorous approach.
Maybe we could have it its own category.
Well, there are
best early access.
There are 1.0 games that release for $60 or $70
that are way worse.
That are way more broken than a lot of early access games.
That's
and so
a good call.
So when thinking about it from that perspective, it's like really all we're doing is recognizing a label, not necessarily recognizing the content quality or any other objective measure of the thing. That doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, I think just I see everything you're saying, but at the same time, it's like the game's not out. It's kind of like a look into development. It's like a developmental build.
I don't agree with
I don't know. I think
it depends. It's a case-by-case basis. And that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
Is like yes, there will be more things added onto it, but if it's and I'm not saying, this is just a hypothetical situation. I'm not saying this will be true for Darkest Dungeon 2, but I'm just saying, like, theoretically, you could have a game that is better than a lot of other games that come out this year that are quote unquote, fully released. And the other thing that I want to say is, it's always like, oh, well, next year we'll remember it. There are too many good games coming out that just doesn't happen. Even if it is incredibly
have its big push when it comes out. We won't forget. I mean, when it officially comes out, it'll be like, it's out.
I think one of the biggest points is that initial window.
Sure.
Now, there is a game that counters a lot of what I'm saying pretty beautifully. That game is Hades. Because that game came out in early access and then really got, I would say, truly, truly blew up after it was fully released.
Totally.
And so there are counterexamples to what I'm saying, but it's hard for me, I guess, going back to what I was saying before, be so cut and dry about this.
Yeah, the last early access game I played was Rogue Legacy 2. And I just feel like it was early access. So I feel like that Rogue Legacy 1, monumental game. I feel like even Rogue Legacy 2 just kind of quietly crept out. And it's like, we're early access. Hey, we're in the corner. We're out. Check our roadmap. Check our development. So it didn't feel like this big grand event. I have a feeling Darkest Dungeon 2 is gonna be similar, where it just kind of quietly comes out and then toils away for however long.
It's hard to say, and I feel like early access is such a tricky beast because with Rogue Legacy 2, because you and I...
You're not a fortune teller. You can't predict that type of stuff. Like, not everyone's going to follow that trend. There will always be early access games that like end up being way better when they come out and improve. There will always be early access games that might be lightning in a bottle for what they were doing at that moment. And then, but like, it's like a cool idea, but like they can't follow through on it. And like a year later, it's like no one cares about it anymore. It wasn't that
PUBG
good.
is a good example.
So it's like, that's not our responsibility, I feel. That, and like, I don't know if that criticism really holds that much weight, or that's even a consequence really to even like lose sleep over. So it's like, I think at the end of the day, like weighing it, it's like, sure, make an early access category for Game of the Years and like go with it.
Yeah. It's almost, it's almost better in my eyes if I was a consumer or viewer watching, because it'd be like, oh, okay, early access. What do we got? Okay, that that's one to look out for. Like maybe I can hop in now or wait down the line, and then like, a year goes by and you're like, oh shit, like those early access, they're getting even better now. Now it's up for Game of the Year. Like you could like track it, you could follow it or something.
I mean, I don't think we have the space to fully extend to this point, but I don't even think it would be that ludicrous to have a best Game Pass game category.
Oh my God.
And I think the more that time goes on, the more sense that will make.
Yeah.
All right. Are we ready for some emails?
Let's do it.
I wish I could just instantly go over to emails. Maybe need to figure that out. All right. Our first email comes in from Joseph, who says... this may seem like a weird idea, but does it feel like we have less information about games coming out than we did before? I remember reading tons of gaming magazines growing up and then watching lots of videos as they become more popular. I felt like every gaming outlet had a different voice. Different interviews and preview articles had a different slant, with new information coming from all the different articles. Now, previews feel carefully choreographed with the same information and B-roll present in most previews. Sometimes it feels like I can watch one preview and know what all the rest will say. Is this actually a thing with companies limiting the information that can be talked about, or are there just so many games out there that we only get a limited number of previews for each? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this. Thanks if you take my question. So, I think yes and no. I think this is a really good question. I do think there is an issue of it's oversaturation, and that manifests itself in a bunch of different ways. So there are more people covering games than ever, and so companies, especially big companies with big games, are absolutely enacting more control over time over what they show because there's so many more different avenues for people to spoil or leak or mess up their very carefully, very expensive PR plan. So yes, that is true. And that's even, in my time working in games, I definitely have felt the screws tighten in that sense. So I do think that is true. But because there are more people covering games than ever, I think you get two things. You get a lot of different perspectives on games, right? So if you watch like our Call of Duty review, it's going to be very different than the YouTube coverage of a professional Call of Duty player. They're going to talk about different things. They're going to talk about things in a different way. They're going to value some things over others. And you can get that now in a way that you really could. In the days of gaming magazines, it was not. Everybody was covering things from a very general perspective. Even though they were different people, I think their approach was a lot more similar than what it is now. The other thing is people really rely on ad revenue and clicks. And so instead of monthly issues, right, imagine waiting monthly to get your game information. Now videos are just so broken up that you'll get a video about the character creator and what crafting is like and skills, right? Whereas before, I think a lot of that stuff would be smushed together into bigger previews and bigger coverage, whereas now it's very micro because they're trying to get as much value out of that stuff as they can.
I have very little insight into this because I don't watch any video game coverage.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
I don't watch trailers for movies or games. Like when they hit me at an event or when I'm with y'all, I do, but I try to just there's like too much, I'm playing I'm playing my own games. Like I don't need to watch any. I don't read previews. Like game looks cool. See you down the line. Like getting on a hype train for a game now years out. Like even Elden Ring. Like that's no. Yeah. That's so far away. Like I don't need to know anything about it. I don't want to know anything about it.
Dude, it's like 3 months.
When it's next year, like call me in January. Like I'll be there.
Yeah, it's actually pretty soon.
Yeah, that's still months away.
Yeah, I get you.
Between now and Elden Ring is Deathloop, Tales of Arise, like a million trillion other games.
Sure.
So
sure.
I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't know.
I also think that because of the sort of really 24-hour cycle of gaming news, there's less time to say things that matter in a way that's very frustrating.
Oh God, I guess I'm that person, Ben. I guess I get my preview stuff from like Twitter.
Well, no, don't blame you. That's how the world works.
Yeah,
now.
like a Twitter
Yeah.
quote. I'll hear quotes about something. Oh, that game has blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and millions of other people. Yeah.
I get little micro nuggets of information that I don't even seek out. They just hit me.
Yeah.
Whereas, I used to read magazines.
It's a consequence of how information has changed. But I do think it is annoying where, like, a lot of things a lot of commentary, I think, feels very empty because it doesn't have the space to be anything other than not empty, which is a bummer. Because the audience demands things happen as quickly as possible.
Yeah. It's never ending.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you kind of hit the closest thing to probably the truth, Ben, is that there's just more people making content about this, and the way people digest information about games has expanded beyond what has been the traditional channels of the past generations. Like even just thinking in terms of just YouTube at this point, that is almost antiquated at this point to say that you just go watch a produced preview video. I would wager a good portion of people who like follow game information don't watch anything on YouTube anymore.
Oh yeah,
they're as you said, they're digesting it through Twitter, through like tweets from people they follow who have
Gamer Magazine.
They have like quotes or little clips on there, and that's how they find it. They're following, as you said, more like focused creators on Twitch, and they're watching them talk about it. Even if they The funny thing is, I feel a lot of people get the information, even if a person did not even attend a preview event. A big name streamer will just go and watch all the coverage that's out there and then present their own kind of like take on all that. And people will watch that, and that will be the way they're informed from it as well. Or they'll read like aggregate things on like a Reddit thread about here are all the impressions, here are like the things, and like here we can now like summarize like what are like all the features in this game. So you don't have to go watch all this stuff. It's just all there in one spot for you now because people are doing it for you. And honestly, I've seen I got to access to see a survey from Square Enix asking how you get informed about games. It's meant for an average consumer, but like I'm reading through this stuff and I'm like, they're asking about all these different. They're asking about TikTok. They're asking about Instagram. They're asking about everything, every possible way you could get stuff. And it's funny when you think about it. I was like, yeah, like YouTube is and like traditional website stuff. Like they actually delineate between professional reviewers and then like influencers are your favorite Twitch reviewer. And it's like, okay, like they're actually even judging like traditional critical reviewers against everyone else now, and trying to. I can see like they're saying there's probably less value in that in terms of like where people get, and get informed about their opinion about a game, especially when it comes to like early coverage.
I'm saying this half jokingly, but I think there's a lot of truth in it. Algorithms are going to get so advanced, and they're going to be able to automatically and accurately predict your taste so well that it's going to get to a point where you're going to wake up and you're going to get a text message about any game that you're interested in. It's just going to say buy or don't buy. Like it's going to take all thought out of it. it'll just automatically order the things that it knows you're going to like and pre-install them on your machines. Yeah.
It's out of control. Yeah, and that's another reason I don't watch anything or consume previews and stuff. It's overwhelming. There's so much, and because I'm just in it, it's my job. I play so many games.
Yeah.
So I do read PC Gamer magazine though, because it's once a month. It's special. It's a hard copy. It's in my hands. It's really thought out. Like the Darkest Dungeon 2 preview was awesome. They were talking to the creator and learned some really cool tidbits in there.
Darkest Dungeon 2, baby.
Mm-hmm. Road trip.
Our next email comes in from Brandon. It's a bit of a long one. Hello, everyone. It's been a day since PlayStation's major showcase, and while the buzz is strong for the KOTOR remake, fuck yeah. Ragnarok gameplay and Insomniac being the bells of the ball, it's the latter that inspired this email. It's well written. I like that. Yes, it's a massive shock to see them work on a standalone Wolverine game, but it's self-described as early in development with no release year, and not 5 minutes later they announced Spider-Man 2, which is tentatively 2023. This isn't the only example we've seen like this in the last couple of years. BioWare has barely released nothing more than a teaser and a couple of dev diaries and an art trailer for Dragon Age for the last few years. But then, at the most recent Game Awards, they show a CG announcement promising Mass Effect will continue, and there's Bethesda, who at their E3 2018 show, 2018, showed the CG trailers for both Starfield and The Elder Scrolls 6. The former, we finally get an in-engine look at this past June without gameplay, announcing a date still over a year away, while Elder Scrolls 6, it's the game after that. Honestly, panel, I'm at a loss. While it's been explained to me release dates aren't for the public, rather investors, which is also confusing because every game gets delayed at this point, whether initial projected release is publicly disclosed or not. Is this also the case for announcing projects we won't hear about for years? I can understand being excited for something, but please take it from a Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts fan. Initial shock and hype can wear into a very long and wondering wait to ponder what's going on with certain games. Am I alone here? Am I crazy for not being excited for Wolverine, Elder Scrolls 6, or the next Mass Effect? Not because of the property, but because it's pointless to know they exist for years before we'll even see them next, much less play them well after that. Thanks for hearing me out if you do, and stay easy, fellow allies.
Yeah, the announcement was hype as shit because it was a surprise in an industry that has fewer surprises every year that goes on. That's why I lost my shit, because there were no leaks, there were no rumors. It was confirming a dream project, like a talented developer working on it. It's a match made in heaven after Spider-Man. And for me, I think it's okay. Because, like I said earlier, there's a million games between me and Wolverine that will occupy my time, that will occupy my headspace. and I try to not even fucking Elden Ring is 3 months away. I'm not even thinking about this game. It's one of my most hyped and anticipated of all time from Software. Right, the second I am, but when I go home, like out of my mind, you know? Yeah. I'm playing there's so many games. Mm-hmm. There are so many. Like, oh wait, whatever, take your time, no rush.
Well, yeah.
Who cares? Who cares?
I do think hype is a currency now because I think it is really easy if you are a listener of this podcast. You are plugged into games in a way that most aren't. I think it is hard to articulate how popular Skyrim was for people that don't normally play games like Skyrim. And so Elder Scrolls 6, like the mere existence of that is like enough for them because they don't necessarily, this is not an insult. They just don't play games in the way that they play games. It's not their every waking, breathing moment. It's just that one game that they're holding on to and looking forward to. Sure. It's the same thing with Marvel properties where Marvel is still at this zenith that any announcement of it, especially while it's as hot as it is, has a lot of value, has a lot of currency. And you also have to keep in mind a lot of people do not buy consoles for the games that are out. They buy them for the games that are coming out. Mm-hmm. And you will hear time and time and time again where people are able to rationalize their purchase of something because they're like, well, I know Wolverine is on the way, or I know Final Fantasy is on the way, or I know whatever is on the way. Even if it's years down the line, it's enough for them to hold on to that hope and excitement because they know that they're going to want that at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of these games are system sellers. Mm-hmm. And Elder Scrolls, specifically, Elder Scrolls is something coming from Skyrim. Like, they want that announcement out there as soon as possible for that game is coming so that, like, and attaching it to a system because it's going to mean people, like millions of people, tens of millions of people are going to be clamoring for that system ASAP because whenever that game arrives, that might be the only game they even care about for that system to play. So, and you know this better than probably anyone, Hubert, like GTA. Yeah. If GTA 6, like, it needs to be multi-platform, but, like, there are literally people who will only buy PS5 or Xbox Series X just to play Grand Theft Auto 6 when it comes out and not care about anything else.
It's bigger than video games. Yeah. It's way bigger than video games. GTA.
Yeah. If GTA was like a console exclusive, people would be stabbing each other to get their hands on. Yeah.
And I think there are a few things like Wolverine. It's like getting people excited. Like Wolverine is probably like one of the biggest Marvel things you could do. It's like Spider-Man's right up there, but like Wolverine, especially right now, everyone's frothing for like we're waiting for the X-Men movies and stuff, and like who's gonna be the new Wolverine? And like Wolverine is it right now. Like it's like the curiosity, it's like at its highest right now, and throwing in a game into the mix, and it's like the Spider-Man game being announced like right next to it is also because it's coming off of that acclaim. Like those are two huge things because Spider-Man is huge right now.
There's also a new Venom movie coming out right around the corner.
And Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, like just like destroying everything. It's like it's a combination, as you said, as a currency. It's like this is the moment to announce it where it's going to get the most traction. Yeah. But it also has buying power within consumers' minds because someone might just be into like Marvel and love like the X-Men, Wolverine. They'll say it like, dude, I'm like a Wolverine game. Heck yeah, I'm getting a PlayStation 5 for Wolverine. Let's go.
Really good point, Damiani, because I'm saying from someone in the industry, you know, I logically I would be like, well, that game's years away. Like if that was the only thing I wanted, I would wait as long as I could because then the price of the system would go down. But like a lot of people aren't tapped into the industry. So I could see your average consumer feeling maybe somewhat not manipulated, but taken advantage of, I guess, in a way of like, hey, Wolverine's coming, but it's like 5 or 6 years down the line. Like that is a really good point. But as like someone who plays a lot of video games, it's just like, see you when I see you, Wolverine.
Yeah, I mean, on the flip side, there are some games I think even now that aren't even big enough anymore that they really shouldn't be announced too far in advance.
I agree with that.
Which falls into this. Like I'll give the last 24 months a pass because of COVID. Like it screwed with a lot of things. So there were probably things that were announced with the intention of this is not going to take that long to come out. and like they got thrown a wrench, and it's like in the works. And it's like you can't predict that type of stuff. So unfortunately, it's taking longer than it should have. But you know, like even like I would say even like Final Fantasy like 16. Like I'm imagining COVID affected that thing, and they even said the next time they want to show it, they want it to be really close to being done. Like they want it representative of the final product when they show off what it looks like next. So it's been like a year since we saw it. And everyone's like, where's that game? Why did you do this again, Square Enix? Like you promised you wouldn't do this. And it's like, well, I mean, things probably happened this time. I mean, if it was a perfect world where there was no COVID right now, sure, they should be getting a little bit more flack for like, hey guys, what's going on? Like you did it again. So I give them a pass on that. And but now I'm expecting like whenever they show it next, it better be near completion, because then it's just feeding into this thing where there are companies who definitely announce things a little too soon, and they think it's going to generate all this excitement, and then like years go by, and it's like we've seen this song and dance way too many times. But also, again, just to consider when companies do this, it is calculated. Like, I absolutely think, despite COVID, Breath of the Wild sequel was announced when it was because Breath of the Wild was massive for them. They're like, Zelda has a potential to be like a Skyrim, like a Mario Kart, like a GTA. Like, it's like selling unbelievable numbers right now, and it just keeps selling. Like, we need to keep people excited about this. Announce the sequel. Just like put out a trailer and say it's in development, and like people.
All right, grab a 8x11 piece of paper. I got a Sharpie, just write 2 on it.
Just write 2. Yeah. I mean, that's what they do with like the Pokemon announcement. It's like, here's a logo. It's like Metroid was wrong because Metroid's not big enough, but Pokemon was like, there's a Pokemon coming to Switch. Like you knew that, but just them saying that's like, oh yeah, I gotta rush out to go buy a Switch. I think there are people who like that's their mentality. It's just a certain word will trigger them to saying like, gotta have that, and it's gotta be big enough. And I think part of it is a company judging if and when a property hits that point. Whereas I think Breath of the Wild was Nintendo judging correctly. It was at a point. And like, who cares if people like it's taking so long? Like the average person, once they see that release date, or they even after it's out, when people start hearing and seeing those crazy videos shared on all the places where we don't watch videos anymore, not on YouTube, they're gonna be like, oh my god, the sequel's out. I'm gonna go buy it right now. I don't have a Switch. I'm going to buy a Switch. Oh, they're sold out. I'm gonna pay $500 in eBay. Like they'll do whatever crazy thing it is to go get a Switch and play it. That's like how much.
They too will be defeated by the bots.
I'm just saying that's how. This is how it works.
Yeah, I think you're very right.
But Metroid 4, Metroid Prime 4, or whatever, that was the wrong thing to do. Like that was like.
Forgot about that game.
Where you have nothing to show of this game but a logo. It's like I get why you're doing it because you're trying to excite Nintendo fans, but like they're already sold. They already have your system. Like they're on board. Like. This is not right. You should like maybe at the time they thought it was further along because we all heard they had to cancel. They had to start development over from scratch with a brand new studio. So maybe it was in a different place at that point. But man, if it wasn't, that was a big miscall.
For me though, because I'm okay with waiting as long as it takes. For me, I love the confirmation. I love knowing that a Metroid Prime 4 is coming. I love that. Because then I can just chill until it comes. Like, there's no rush on any of these games because we're getting so many good games all the time, from 10 out of 10s to swimming in 7s to indies. There is no shortage.
I love how in that explanation, there is nothing between a 10 and a 10 and a 7. We're getting 10s and we're getting 7s.
And this year...
And indies.
This year, actually, the most 8s you will ever play in your life. This year is the year of 8 out of 10s, dude. My God. So many good 8s. Better than 7s. Don't you like the confirmation knowing it's coming? Like, isn't that...
As long as it comes out. That's the thing. There's been several times when they announce something so far in advance. True. It never comes out. It vanishes. You get burned. It's like, I like the trend of when it's possible, announce something closer to its release date. And that shorter kind of build up to it works for a lot of games. Nintendo was doing that last year for a lot of its titles.
Style.
Yeah. Is it Capcom style? Did they really...
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, Resident Evil, you know, they announced it and it comes out pretty soon.
There you go. Yeah.
I think Capcom has, for the most part, nailed announced
do it like that.
Process.
Do it like Capcom.
It's been like a really good window for a lot of their tentpole releases recently. Yeah.
We've been waiting for Metroid. I mean, throw another one out there. Bayonetta 3. You know,
Don't.
I will say there is one that hurts me, Ben. There is one that hurts me. There is an exception to the rule. That's been painful. You know it. It's Silk Song. What the hell?
No, Silk Song actually doesn't.
It's been so long.
I think the thing with Silksong
That
though
one,
is
that one.
you like that one. You have to understand the nuance of the history behind the original
Totally.
game's development, how long
Yeah.
it took, and the team size.
It actually hasn't been that
Yeah.
long. Yeah.
And that's like also a game that like while it's wildly popular amongst its the demographic it's selling to, and it's sold very well. I don't think it has. That's not in that category of like you say that word
Small
and
effort.
it sells systems. It's like no, it will sell a lot of copies and will do very well. But it's not like it doesn't have the power of a Grand Theft Auto or an Elder
Bayonetta
Scrolls.
3 hurts me though. Like what the actual
Hey, they
fuck
just
is
said it's
going
coming.
on?
They a couple weeks ago, I saw a quote.
They claimed it's not their fault. They
Yeah.
can't show it. They
Yeah,
said
yeah,
it's out of their hands.
I don't
Yeah.
give a fuck whose fault it is. What is going? I cannot believe they have not shown that game. What is going on? Oh my god! I don't care whose fault it is.
we heard Ben.
All right. Last email. Oh my god, that one really gets me. All right, this comes in from Abel. The competitive Super Smash Bros. Melee community had its first in-person tournament since COVID a few weeks ago. The 16-player Invitational Smash Summit 11, and it culminated in what is already being considered one of the greatest grand final sets in the history of the game, a 10-game nail-biter between the new #1 in the world, Zane, and the veteran Mango, who has been at the top of the competitive scene for nearly 15 years. I think it's pretty special that a game...
Not our Mango, right?
No.
Okay.
You don't know Mango.
I don't.
Oh, he's a legend.
Okay.
Anyway, I think it's pretty special that a game that's almost 20 years old has a healthy competitive scene with a still evolving meta, and it got me thinking about Melee as being a kind of anomaly in the history of competitive gaming. My question is, what other old game or previous iteration in a series do you think would make for an exciting esport? With games like Street Fighter V not arousing the same competitive enthusiasm as previous titles, and almost every competitive scene jumping ship to whatever the newest releases are, I feel like there could be a place for a grassroots community to uphold the most mechanically interesting or fun competitive games of yesteryear in the same way the Melee community has. Thank you. Love this question. I think it's a fantastic question.
Dude, Perfect Dark. Perfect Dark has like some sketch ass weapons in that game. I want to see how the pros utilize the tools of Perfect Dark. Like that is a game that there's a lot of skill involved, but there's also like a fair amount of shenanigans with some of the tools. I would love to see it.
I love what you're saying. Perfect Dark multiplayer is a blast, is a riot, it's so much fun. I don't think it has the same depth as Melee. I don't think it is competitively viable as Melee. I think Melee, I love what this person is saying, and I want it to be a case, but I honestly and unfortunately feel like Melee is lightning in a bottle, where it is a game that is broken open and so mechanically interesting in ways that maybe weren't meant to be, and has kind of developed a scene. It developed a scene at a time where competitive scenes were not what they are now, and I think that's the important thing is you can't do it now because I don't think that there's enough room. And in really to grow a grassroots scene in the way that there has to be money involved, unfortunately. That's the shitty part about it. And so I do think I think there are tournaments happening for games all the time that you've probably forgotten about from, there are local scenes that people are really passionate about. And I do think people care about a lot of these smaller time games, but on a big level in a way that gets viewership in the way that Melee does, you need investment. And Melee has the cachet. It's been around. It's a known quantity. It has incredible personalities that are beloved and have their own followings, and they've made a life through Melee. And so, to be like, I want to bring this game back, I think just the amount of effort that you would need to make that happen, you would need some sort of investment. You would need some sort of spark to get that involved. And I just don't know how that could happen as sick as it would be, I think it would be so cool if you could have something like an old classic game rise to the level of Melee, but I just don't know where the avenue is.
Yeah. Like, Third Strike was the only other game. Like, it's like, for that long stretch, you know, when people are carrying the torch for Street Fighter before 4 came out, it was basically Third Strike, like CVS2. I mean, MVC2 might be one
That's
that
not
could,
already one?
No, I mean, it's fallen off, though, because
it's not on the level of Melee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, like, but I mean, there's been people calling for, like, you know, a resurrection of that series, and if they're not necessarily going to make a new entry, officially re-release MVC2, which is the one the community seems to want the most, to like get another official release, potentially, you know, maybe some like, you know, additions to it to you know, like, I guess
director's cut.
You know, the dream of like rollback netcode, stuff like that, which seems to be like the kind of like the thing that like maybe prevents a lot of these games from having a chance in modern times. Is so much of this, I mean, there's in person, but a lot of this has also moved to online as well, like and like games with the best netcode.
Evo was entirely online.
And even Melee struggles with this is as strong. Like, it's telling how much Melee, how well it's done in spite of, you know, Nintendo mostly working against that game, you know, not really supporting it in the way the community's ever really wanted it to outright pulling the rug from under them in more recent like years and even like weeks and months, where they just shut down a branch, part of a tournament bracket for one of the recent Smash tournaments. They shut down the Melee part of it because it was using a modified version. It was going to use rollback netcode, and it says like you can't do that. Like, that's a modification. You can't do that. No modified versions of our Smash games. So and they did it like days before the event was supposed to happen. So people who paid for air travel and hotels couldn't get refunds. It's like, you know, despite all that shit, you know, they're still willing to come back for more and risk, you know, put up with that risk. And it's just, I can only think of maybe a handful that would even come close, but I just don't, I mean, the one always comes to mind because like its successors kind of like petered out, but I mean, it's probably the worst time for this company to try anything of this, obviously, would be the original StarCraft. Like how big it got and stuff, and where it could have gone. If
StarCraft is almost like its own genre,
yeah, but like, you know, now is not the time for that. Obviously, it'd be like one of the worst times to try that. But unless it was like a grassroots movement, but even then, you're gonna get some like flack from people like, "Why are you still supporting this?" and stuff. Like, you know, but putting that stuff aside for right now, just looking at StarCraft the game, I think it is one of those candidates potentially. If people wanted to resurrect it, and there's enough people I think would be invested in it, and people get behind it to a point that even if it was a world where, you know, Blizzard wasn't in the shitstorm it was right now and in a better place, Blizzard might even back it and be like, yeah, let's get back in the OG StarCraft. You know, like these fans kickstarted this, like let's help them out and stuff. But, you know, that's not where we are.
What about Power Stone?
I also love Power Stone. I don't know if it is
too much shenanigans.
Yeah, well, I just don't know if it would, because you really need like this abundance of complexity, and you need and like the whole point of Power Stone is that it's party fun, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way.
Totally. But do they still have 1.6 Counter-Strike tournaments, or is it just Source now?
No, it's not like, Source. It's
Go.
Yeah. It's Go.
Do they do like old 1.6 tournaments anymore?
I mean, I'm sure they're out there.
Yeah, because that's like the pinnacle.
What you're talking about with 1.6, I want to touch on with Third Strikes, right? So Third Strike is an incredible game, deeply, deeply beloved by the community, super exciting to watch even to this day, and there are modern versions of Third Strike that you can play. However, a lot of the legendary Third Strike players are still in the competitive scene. But their livelihood, right? Like they've made their lives being competitive players. Why would they risk that livelihood by trying to prop up an old game when they can play Street Fighter V, which is supported directly by Capcom, which has its own official tournament that they can run, right? Which has a ton more visibility, that's backed in so many ways, that is available on the most current consoles, that's getting updated constantly, so it's going to get more attention when a new Street Fighter V character. There's not going to be a new Third Strike character that's going to drop, right? So it's just like, I bet a lot of those players like Third Strike a lot more than they like Street Fighter V. But unfortunately, it's just not practical for them to make that leap. Whereas like Smash is this weird thing where because it's not...
It's an anomaly.
Yeah, well, it's not... The way Nintendo has handled it has created also room, I think, for the community to support Melee in the way that they want to see it. They've very
made
weird.
It their own.
Yes.
Yeah.
They've made it their own. It's a good question, though, and I really like where your heart is at, Abel, and I think that would be really cool. But even, I think the other counter side to this, and we talked about oversaturation, even really good fighting games that get well-reviewed or sell well die off really quickly, a lot of them. More fighting games die than live. Just because there's so much going on. There's so much competing for people's attention. It's hard. It's really, really hard. And that's going to do it for Frame Trap. What a weird note to end on. But that's going to do it for Frame Trap.
Somber tapestries.
This has been the longest episode of Frame Trap in quite some time, but it was long because I think the discussions were there. So thank you so much to my panelists, Michael Damiani and Michael Huber. This was a blast. If you want to write in and have us ponder your question for Frame Trap, the address is askeasyallies@gmail.com. One more time, that is askeasyallies@gmail.com. Until next time.